In this episode of the Texas Private School Podcast, the TXPS preseason preview is upon us. Is the era of the Big Three in Division One dead? Can anyone in Division Two touch All Saints? Probably not. Will DC return to glory in Division Three, or will Lubbock or whatever newcomer besides Brazos Christian claim the throne? First Baptist is back and better than ever, but Rose Hill and Central Texas won't go down without a fight in Division 4. Wayne Shanks looks to lead Kincaid back to the promised land, but Williams, Warren, and Morgan with Episcopal might constitute the most talented team in the land. And Oak Ridge looks to cement their hold on the top of SPC 3A after tons of offseason shakeup. But more importantly, we are back in your feed for the next 14 weeks, and we are so excited to do it. And we will detail all of that and more on this episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the preseason preview of the Texas Private School Podcast. It has been many moons since we have been back in your previews, not in your previews, your feeds. It tells you how rusty I am at this. I don't even know if I remember my typical lead in, but I will try. As always, I am one third of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson, calling in from east of Dallas in Sunnyvale, Texas. I am joined, as always, by my two fantastic co-hosts, Walker Lott in the Brazos Valley in College Station, Texas, Ryan Schroeder north of the Red River in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Gentlemen, we always go into hibernation, after the state game through most of basketball, and then we run really fast throughout the retreat, now the magazine, which we'll touch on, and then we take a brief little nap, and then we get back up, and the season's back upon us. I feel like we wrapped up state 2 weeks ago, and we're back here, and honestly, I'm fired up for it. Walker Lott, we're back. We're better than ever. We're bringing on a whole crew of new student analysts. I think this will be the biggest season of TXPS media yet. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and how you have been these past few months.
Yeah, you kind of said it like it was like, oh yeah, March and April is kind of slow. I did my whole spring tour and April, May, and then like from June, July, August, it just is back to back. You're just going, going, going. I just remember finishing up the retreat, and be like, we had our biggest retreat yet. We had kids actually get offered. We had almost 100 guys there. We had the coaching staff galore, and we were like, oh, this is awesome. And then it ended, and I remember going home and be like, whew, oh my gosh, I have 4 weeks to put it on a magazine. Like it's just like, okay, that's the level we have. And so it was a lot of fun this summer. We definitely bumped it up once again, like we always try to do each year, and we bumped it up this year with TXPS Media. The magazine was awesome. We can talk about that a little bit more. But man, it was a great summer. New student analysts. The returning ones are awesome. It's going to be a great year, and like always, we're going to the moon and even past it this year.
I think so. I'm incredibly excited for all that this season entails. But Ryan Schroeder, we are so incredibly back. There are so many fun things and fun storylines as we look into the season. What are your thoughts on the past few months of insanity from the TXPS media standpoint, and also as we look forward into, I think this is year 6 of this thing.
Yeah, no, first, yeah, I mean, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be another great year. I'm super excited. It's going to be a shakeup for sure. We're starting early, and we're ending early this year, so that's already going to be a different shakeup than how we've had it in the past. And that's going to shake up a whole cycle in terms of award show and everything else too. So, definitely interested to see how that kind of turns out. But from the summer perspective, I mean, everything from 7-on-7 to straight to the retreat to moving into the magazine, I think we did a great job. We really, really tried to make it the highest quality product in terms of everything we did. The retreat and the magazine, especially, are two things that we fully controlled, and we really, I felt like, just hit those out the water if I'm being selfish here. There's a lot of things that we had goals of going into for both the magazine and the retreat. And I would gladly think that most of those goals were hit. And I hope to continue this success as we enter year 6. So
I completely agree. Again, I mentioned this on the intern interview. With as much stuff as we do, I said the second that I stop having fun doing anything with TX Media, I'm done. It doesn't mean the first day I stop, because this, as Walker and Ryan both know, a lot of days actually feel like a lot of work, especially having full-time jobs outside of this. But especially, and again, we've talked about the student analysts. You'll get to meet some of them throughout the coming weeks, but especially as we become to interview them, bring them back in, it brings new life into our program. And it's just so incredibly exciting to have a dedicated team of people working towards a common goal. And that is the elevated coverage and highlighting of the talented athletes across Texas private schools. That being said, Walker, I'm going to kick it to you because it's your brainchild, and we released probably the biggest, not probably the biggest and coolest thing that we've ever done up to this point. TXPS Media's Unrivaled. It's out now. It's available. The pre-orders for the physical edition will have closed by the time this comes out, but the online version of the magazine still available. Just give a quick blurb on the work that went into this and ultimately what our goal was by producing it.
Yeah, this was something, like you said, it's kind of my brainchild, and I've been pushing y'all probably since year one of us doing this. And we just didn't have the staff to fully, take on the challenge. And this finally year, the interns and the guys we've had on staff this past year, we were like, okay, this is finally the year. And it is just something special. It's a thing where you can put in your hand the entire community of TXPS in your hand to research and learn and be excited about a new season. Uh, our whole thing is right. We wanted to be the ESPN for private school sports. We wanted to be the guys that, when you're looking at the back of the magazine, you don't want to be discouraged, but you want to be enlightened and excited about your name being in something. And this is all of what it's all about. It's 200 long pages about TXPS, from prospect pages to cover articles to cover stories to feature stories on certain guys in TXPS, and then a whole team page dedicated to each team and taps D1 do through D4 and then SBC 4A and 3A. Previews, storylines, our preseason award winner nominations that we think, like our award show that we release in the fall or after the season, we have those nominated preseason nominations already. Our rankings, like our storylines, our superlatives, our who's gonna best underclassmen, best rising prospects. Like it's everything you would want to know about the industry and about the community all in one place. And you can sit there and after practice keep reading. You won't be finishing it until probably a week and 2 weeks from now. Like it's everything you want and more. And the hard work and dedication from our crew is just nothing short of exceptional. I mean, the cover story that Wes wrote about the coaches and Cooper Wynn was great. It's a fun read. It's long. Like you can see the time that he put into it and everything that you can see. Basically, what I'm trying to summarize here is that if you read it, you can see the effort that we usually do for our previews and everything like that. Our research, our boots on the ground that we've done this spring, this summer, you can see all that dedication and hard work put into one place, and that is TXPS. I mean, it's unrivaled, and it's a special, special thing.
No, we're so incredibly happy for it. I view this personally as kind of the culmination of everything that we have tried to make TXPS Media over the last 6 years in one physical publication. It's an asset that puts the athletes of Texas private schools on the forefront in their own basically little world, little magazine that we get to push out and then build on that coverage throughout the year. Ryan Schroeder, you also did a ton of work in terms of wrapping this up, getting it ready, and also basically editing the entire coaching interview, basically clipping things to make sure all of our socials were promoting this correctly. Working on that, what does this magazine mean to you as we finally deliver this to the people and everyone gets to get their hands on the first dedicated publication highlighting solely private school athletes?
No, it's just been such a cool process. I mean, everything has been unique from every different event or different thing we've done, from state championships to the retreat to 7-on-7 to now this. Like, there's always been a different way that we definitely try to showcase it to y'all. And I think the feedback has been incredible online. We've had such amazing discourse with y'all. Even just posting the rankings yesterday was an absolute treat to be able to go back and forth with people about certain stuff. And not to mention the coaches pod. I literally told Walker and West, I was sitting there, I couldn't make the coaches pod, when it was being recorded, but I legitimately, when editing it, I was just smiling ear to ear the whole time. I was like, it was just the most fun thing to listen to. If you haven't gotten the chance to listen to it, it's on our page. And genuinely, it's one of the most entertaining things to hear just some of the best coaches in the sport kind of just give a little bit of a deep dive on each of their histories, but then also talk about some topics that are relating to the current state of private school sports and private school football in general. So Just genuinely, I enjoyed it so much, and I'm super thankful that y'all had the opportunity to do that at the cover shoot. That was such a cool thing that we were able to do, and yeah, I mean, yeah, you'll have to check it out. It was such a cool, such an insightful podcast. Definitely worth a listen.
No, dude, it was incredibly fun. Like I said, this is our love letter to y'all. I mean, we hope everyone has the chance, to either have a physical copy or look at it online, just get to say, here, that's my name or that's my team. Because I still remember the excitement I got picking up a copy of, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, flipping to the back and just seeing, my name mentioned once and my height and weight. But just to see that kind of validated all the hard work I'd put in for the last 4 years. And we hope that all of you can have this same opportunity just to highlight the effort you put in. And we will continue to do that through live coverage, podcasts, and all of that, throughout the rest of the season. But that being said, go pick up your copy. We had a lot of fun making it. It's still available for you to go out and read. That being said, before we get in to our divisional previews and I explain how we're going to do the formatting this year, I want to take it back to the retreat for a second, just because we hadn't done a podcast since then. And we're not going to go over the whole thing because Ryan did a great job in kind of leading the content team to get all of that onto socials for you to see. But I do want to ask you a quick question just to talk about it. Basically, the best player or players. I'm going to limit it to at least one or two that you witnessed during the retreat. I know there was a ton of great athletes there, and I want to hit on something that Walker said was that we had at least 15 or 20 kids get offers from that retreat. A huge shout out to the colleges that came by. And the fact that this is the first year we got kids physically offered, and that, Walker Ryan and I could walk around, point these college coaches to kids we knew would be fits with their program, and physically see that guy walk over and offer the kid, or at least get the conversation started. That was almost as rewarding as even the magazine, in my opinion, just to see the difference that we can try and help make. It's enough yapping out of me. In terms of the best player and best individual performance I saw at the retreat, and I might be stealing one of y'all saying this because I think he just, blew his way off the page, was Caleb Cruz. I mean, we've known a lot about Caleb Cruz. He's also the cover boy for Dave Campbell's Texas Football private school page. But it's really, really hard typically for a defensive back. If you look at a defensive back and be like, oh, that dude's the best player on the field. Because usually DBs only get their name in the paper if they get a pick, or more often they get burned for a touchdown. Cruz literally was going against not just, kids that would start in Texas private school, some of the best receivers across Texas private school sports, and just locking them down over and over and over again. I think I saw one pass caught on him, and it was like a 10-yard comeback. And he immediately starts jawing. The kid gets up and starts jawing at him. And Caleb's like, you can't jaw at me on a 10-yard comeback. Run a go route and see who wins. It was fantastic. It highlighted the competitive nature of the event. The final rep between kind of like one of the best receivers there, the coaches designated, and Jackson Coleman versus the best DB and Caleb Cruz was maybe the highlight moment of the retreat of any year we've had so far. It was fantastic. That being said, Caleb Cruz is a dog. I'm not, bursting anyone's bubble saying that, but he just absolutely dominated the whole retreat, and he deserves his flowers. Walker, who's, in your opinion, who is the guy from the retreat?
Yeah, I'll say a couple quick ones. I think the quarterbacks, just naming some of those. I think Jackson Franco did really, really good. The 29 for Midland to add on to the other Midland guy. I think those two are gonna they're gonna have to bring Midland to success this year because they're just that good. Cruz Messer, the kid, the new coming incoming kid from Liberty Christian, has put a lot of people on notice after that thing of like, oh, you lose Quinn Murphy, absolutely, but it's not gonna be that far of a drop off. And I'm excited to see that. And I think the big one is another quarterback is the Cowboy himself after that thing was Crawford Moffitt, the Bucknell commit. Just put on display. And granted, I was kind of managing everything, so I didn't really get to watch. But the time I watched was him just dropping dime after dime and seeing everyone go, okay, yeah, I see how it's going to be. And I think what he's going to do this year is going to be sensational. I think he's going to have an OPO-wide type of season. Garrett Gunner returns. You have Houston Shaw in the slot. Like, it's going to be a firework offense down there in Austin. And I've said it forever, but especially now, the 27 class of quarterbacks runs through Austin this year with Divine, him, and Nico Anderson being pretty much one, two, three in the class. So, exciting things. And then, yeah, so the quarterbacks just kind of stood out to me quickly. And, I mean, Cam Becerra, my offensive lineman from SCS, he just stood out and made a lot of the offensive defensive line guys around there go, okay, he's going to be something this year, which SCS kind of always has one offensive lineman that's like 6'4" that can be really good. And he's the next in line, but he might be the best in the past decade. And I'm excited to see that.
That'll be incredibly interesting. Ryan Schroeder, who is your standout athlete from the TXPS retreat?
Oh man, if I had to pick one, it's hard. I think my answer leans Jet because I was watching a lot of the
Yes.
linebackers more, Jet Thomas. But I mean, all of our award winners were incredible. Baron Meacham was incredible.
Yep.
Bo Pearson was incredible.
Can I
And then
talk
Ryan
about
Power.
Bo Pearson
Yeah,
came up to me
yeah,
and was like, "You didn't like the whole like when we did the draft, we didn't pick Bo Pearson." And he was like,
yeah,
he's like, "You're
dude.
gonna regret it today," and just dominated that day. So shout out to him. Like he kind of showed us up, and that's what you like to
Yeah.
see. So
No, that's valid. And then yeah, Ryan Powers. I mean, you don't even have to say it. I mean, he was going to show out regardless in his backyard. So, all that to be said is that all of our award winners did really well, and it was a great display of just absolute, ball from across the state. So,
No, it was
Jet
incredible.
Thomas, by the way, sorry, Jet Thomas getting a Michigan offer the day after the or 2 days after the event, I think speaks volumes about his performance there. That's all I'm gonna say.
Can
just
we
so
take credit for that? Maybe there was like an
Yes.
undercover Michigan coach there.
Yes.
Or we can just lie and said
We
we
had
we
a
caught the undercover
Connor
Michigan.
Stallions was in the
yeah,
crowd just watching.
exactly. Yeah, he was lurking there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we had Connor Stallions there recruiting for Michigan, of which he does not coach for anymore, but still
No.
might be writing manifestos for. That still is unknown. But that being said, I also think that we need an antitrust establishment in TXPS to get Kingston Buyer and Ryan Powers off the same team, off the same
Yeah,
defensive line.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know how, and then Jet Thomas in the same defensive front. How does that happen? Again, I'm not going to bury the lead. We'll get into our divisional previews here in a second. And by here in a second, I actually mean right now. So, that being said, in the past, we have done basically 5 different episodes, each one episode on a division of, and then SPC we smush into one. We're not going to do that this year because we literally put probably 15 times more effort into making the magazine. We want to go and read that. We have even more detail than we would have in our previews in that magazine. Every team that we got information for, which is pretty much 99% of them in the state, is in that magazine. We're going to use the basically talking points for each division and district as the guide to navigate our preview here. So we're going to go D1 through D4 in the SPC 4A and 3A. Again, I'm not promising we're going to go in depth on every team. I'm actually guaranteeing you we're not, but we're going to talk at a high level through each division, what we see as key storylines moving on throughout the season, and then what teams and players we think will be able to make a big impact. And again, we'll end up saying something here that will get clipped at the end of the season, and people will tell us, "Hey, you're incredibly wrong. That was dumb." I'm actually very surprised. No one from Lubbock Christian at the end of last year clipped anything I said in the preseason because basically the entirety of the preseason, I was like, Dallas Christian's going to roll through this entire division and no one's going to stop them. Maybe they can clip that this year. I didn't say that about this year's team. I said it about last year's team. Moving on, we're going to look at TAPS Division 1 first as I navigate throughout my copy of TXPS Media's Unrivaled to look at the storylines. But I think the big one here, and I don't even know if this is an official storyline, it might have been one that I made up, and I mentioned this in the preview. Does the era of the big three continue being Parrish, Prestonwood, and Liberty as the three dominant forces, or does Legacy Christian make a push in this division? Listen, I know actually we ranked Legacy above Prestonwood in the preseason rankings, and I'm sure we'll have some version of that either on the screen. But the way that it goes is Parrish, Liberty, Legacy, Prestonwood is the top four, and then I think there's a little gap outside of that. But my personal opinion is I think the era of the big three is dead. And I'm not saying those teams cannot make a push. I think Parrish, by the way, might be better and probably is better this year than last year with the returning production. Lucero back as a sophomore. Jonathan Phillips, who might be Division One MVP, back as an all-purpose. Jonathan Phillips' younger brother is back on the team. You got Kingston Thornton. You've got so many guys returning, and obviously Daniel Novikov is still there leading the ship. I think Parrish is the clear-cut favorite to win the division. Liberty, I still think will be very good, hinging on Cooper Witten and I said, Jonathan Phillips might be the best player in D1 if Cooper Witten doesn't play. I think that's the tagline, which I don't think will happen. I asked Cooper a really good question in our preview interview. I was like, hey man, you'd be well within your rights to shut it down for the season and just prepare for your time at OU. And I knew the answer to this before I said it because he's, a driven kid, but I wanted to throw it to him and see his response. And he's like, it never crossed my mind in the least. And I said that because he's done everything he needs to do. He's proven himself as one of the best prospects in the state. He's won not one, but two state championships already playing with his dad and his brother. It's just like, you've done everything you need to do. Why not just get ready for college? And he said, I'm not done. He's like, I want to go out with this group of guys, not the group of guys from 2022, 2023, 2024, but this group in 2026 and go win a state championship. I think that's telling to his mindset coming into the season. Before I go even further, I can go into legacy and all the guys that they brought in. Walker, I'm going to kick it to you first. It is my personal thoughts that the era of the Big Three is dead, hinging on what Preston Wood might be able to do after losing so much. I think Legacy moves himself into that spot, but it really might just be Parrish's world and we're all living in it. What are your thoughts looking into Division One North?
It's going to be so intriguing because yes, Parrish is the clear number one. They reload and do all a lot of stuff, but they do also have a lot of question marks in certain aspects, right? Like the receiving core, completely new, like completely new. For the first time ever, you don't have the proven like wide receiver U is coming through Parrish this year, like in years past. That's really going to be legacy. Like Harbor, Bays leading the way, Gordon, the other tight end, never get his name on the top of my head. Like you have dudes all over the place that they might be the receiver U in Division One this year, with Cade Lynch coming in. So that's kind of the thing. Like with Prestonwood, we don't know much about this new head coach. He's won a lot of games in the past, very connected to Baylor, right? Of course, but like, how is he as a coach in the new age? We don't know, right? You have Ryan Nidek coming in. You're like, okay, he can be something really good this year. That's going to be intriguing. Or is it going to be Max Reyes? I'm going to guess they'll go the Air Force commit. But there's a lot of just question marks, right? Vance Hernandez looks good and some other pieces, but like they just have a lot more to like question marks. You have Kenneth Smith, who's going to be good, Lineberger, Bixler, who were great last year. It's just a lot like Prestonwood just has a lot of questions. Can they make the state title game if everything goes well? Absolutely. That doesn't change. But like, can I say the big three or the big three favorites this year? No, you really can't. Legacy returns a lot and they brought in more, and that's the scary part. And same thing with Liberty, kind of what I mentioned, Cruz Messer looking good, like not just good, but great. And the retreat going, okay, you have him, you have Cooper Wynn, you bring in a couple pieces. I forget a guy we didn't even add. He came in from another place. I'll find his name in a second. A 27-6'3" wide receiver that comes in that we didn't even know about for the magazine. It's just like you have pieces that are going to come in that are going to be pretty scary. But I just think the wild card, but I think not really. It's just more of wild card in history, but really not this year. I think it's going to be legacy. It's going to be a scary thing. And even not just that, I'll mention it really quickly. St. Thomas was my pick to go into the state championship. It was the wild card. It's the big one out there, absolutely. But they might have one of the best defenses in all of the state coming into this year. Pierce Jacobson returns. The offensive line is going to be really good. Miles Stewart returns. Plus, you have Ben Creech and RJ Kimpson leading the way, or RJ Wilson leading the way at the tight end spots. Creech is going to be basically wide receiver one for them. They have a lot of pieces to go. How can they go? And so it's going to be very interesting. But to synopsis your question, is the big three done? I think so. But it can be solidified of being like, not just yet this year. And that's going to be interesting to watch.
I agree with that. And I like your comments on St. Thomas. My personal thoughts are that I go back to 2023. For me to take St. Thomas seriously, not as a contender in the South, because I think they're great. And this is only because the North is consistently so hard. But for me in the preseason, to be able to confidently say, I think St. Thomas can make a title game and compete for a title, I need to see them have the talent level they did in like 2023 with a Dante Lewis, with the Johan Cardenas, with who's the receiver, with Luke Edgecombe.
Yes.
With a Luke Edgecombe, with those type of guys. I'm not saying, Miles Stewart and company are not that. I'm just saying Dante Lewis and Johan Cardenas were two of the best athletes we've ever seen in TXPS. Again, they might have a better chance with Prestwood maybe being a little weaker. We don't know as much about Liberty, but I still think Parrish is just so far head and shoulders above the rest of the competition at this point that it'd be hard for me to take not only St. Thomas, but any Southern team and say realistically they have a chance to compete. Ryan Schroeder, I'm going to kick it to you because we've talked a lot about legacy and we haven't even mentioned the legacy alum on the podcast. I wish one day that Grace will be return so much talent and bring in so many players that we can say Grace is the new blood in Division Two. We're not quite there yet, but soon. But Ryan, they have brought so many teams in with guys at the helm like Mackey and Hicks, who I love as a coaching staff. I think they have a great chance to take a great leap forward, as our friends in China would say. Your thoughts on legacies they move into the season and Division One as a whole?
Dude, like we've never been this like on paper, we've never been this good since like 2010s, like Blake Snyder day. I'm talking like we haven't been good in like on paper, we haven't been that good in over a decade at this point. Looking at this from the view of how y'all saw it, is a big three still alive? The true answer is no. I mean, Parish and Liberty have factors that just aren't. It's just maybe a step above even the guys that are returning for Legacy. Legacy is on y'all can tell me if you disagree. They're on the outside looking in just a little bit. It's Parish and Liberty, kind of in their own sense, and maybe the big three is kind of dissembled, and definitely Prestonwood is not in that conversation anymore as they used to be. With that all being said, uh, I mean, how could you not like some of the best parts of the parish, like y'all talked about? Lucero, Phillips, Thornton are absolutely going to be dogs. I'm still like, you want to go top two duos in all of private school. If you have Cooper Witten and Buckhalter Jr. on your team, like that's just going to be an absolute masterclass on both sides of the ball there. So it's stuff like that. But from a legacy homer perspective and kind of me personally with the excitement about this team, I love it. I love how many guys we returned this year. I think it's sad to lose a guy like Sam Jones and obviously Luke Lawrence and Jackson Ladd, but you kept Jude, you kept Caswell, you kept Riley, and you got so many good weapons alongside them. Not to mention the fact that you talked about the wide receiving core being one of the best in the state. Now the linebacking core is also about dang near the same good linebacking core we had last year. Minus Sam Jones. So all that to say is that I'm really excited about this legacy team. I just have to be objective with myself and say that there's just so many dogs on Parish and Liberty, and they even when legacy, finally took the step when the 12 freaking public schools are there in Frisco, and there's different guys down the street that they could go grab, and they got some great dudes. It still feels like Parish and Liberty are the Parish and Liberty for a reason, and they're still just going to be the top dogs in some aspect or another. But there's definitely some shakeup for sure.
No, definitely so. I think some of the other teams in the North just really quickly are going to be interesting. I think in year two under Havity, TCA can make a little bit of noise. I also just realized they got Ethan Perkins from Lynch, who was our defensive player of preseason player of the year for Lynch. That's going to be a big get for them. That tells you that they're actively going around being like, "Hey, it's time to accumulate talent." And you knew that would happen with a guy under Haverty. And isn't Beck Bryden as the AD? I mean, that proves that's a team that is serious about not just winning with the microwave method of bringing guys in, but also building themselves to compete for the long term. I mean, I think they have a chance to be good going forward. Lynch is always a team that's kind of close to my heart just because I'm so close to them. I know the guys around there. It's a great coaching staff and I enjoy them. It's obviously just going to be tough because, losing Ethan Perkins hurts. Losing Zach Williams is a body blow just because he was set to be one of the rising stars and would have been one of the best in TXPS as a sophomore. You hate to see him go to Allen, but Connie Cruz Barrios back at running back is great. Nick Payne is a dog. And then also they bring in a guy named Colton Sanders from Ohio that I texted Walker the second I was there at state and I saw him. I'm like, that's an all-state linebacker. He's going to be really, really good. He's going to be a mean, just tough linebacker that Lynch will benefit from. Um, but with that said, the line looks a little bit shaky. I really like Ngoy for them at tackle, but unless they brought in some more dudes between spring and now, it's just going to be tough. And again, if they weren't playing in TAPS Division One, they'd be a state contender. But they're just in a league with so many players.
Yeah.
I was just going to say something that I think is going to be interesting this year. I was kind of going through the schedule earlier. JP2 and Bishop Lynch will play twice this year, just given how it's going to work out with the scheduling beforehand versus when JP2 joined, TAPS Division One. JP2 is returning to TAPS Division One again. It's definitely how many years did they take off of TAPS? What was it? One, two, 3 years?
Two to four. It's either they did one bowl cycle or two. One of the two.
Either way, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to come back. And to come back to basically one of the best districts in the entire state is even harder. With all that being said, I'm really interested to see how those two games go. It's a very rare scenario where you get to see two teams play each other within 3 weeks. And I think I'm open to seeing how I think those teams are pretty close to each other in terms of talent level. Bishop Lynch is obviously a bit better, but I'd be interested to see how those two games go.
No doubt.
No, I agree with that. And then we're going to flip down to the South now and just talk about that a little bit briefly. I know we talked about St. Thomas a little bit already. Walker, big storyline, two big ones that I'm thinking of is number one, Antonian, who he has slotted as a major contender, loses their major piece in Rogan Parson, who transfers out in the week leading up to the season. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on Antonian moving
Yep.
into the year and also Lutheran South moving up from Division Two, where they're a very good Division Two team. We're pretty high on them. We have them ranked third in the South. And I think in a league that pretty much is just wide open below St. Thomas usually in the South, I think with Luke Mazur and the other guys, they're set up to compete really well. But overall, when you look at the South, obviously we never expect them to compete to the level that the North is going to be at. That's no shame on them. But I do think there's a ton of talent in this division. Just how do you see this whole thing shaking up throughout the year?
Yeah, Antonian's an interesting one, right? We go through the spring, we think it's Parson, we think all this stuff, and then a week before the magazine comes out, we hear the news, hey, he's not going to be the guy anymore. He's transferring out. And we're like, okay, well, who is the guy? And that's going to be the big question for them. They have the weapons. Really excited about Noah Casillo, Marcus Cantu, Ryder Stover over there, but it's the quarterback battle. It's Noah Trigo, the 29 who was here last year, really promising underclassmen, and then the rising freshman, Justice Cloutier, who's already 6 foot 6'1", who a lot of people are really excited about the program around him. So like the quarterback battle, see who wins that is going to be an interesting thing. But I think whoever does win it is going to be in for like a kind of a newcomer of the year type of season because of the weapons around him, and both guys are talented. But yeah, Teddy Wyatt comes back, who's the younger brother of another Wyatt brother who was really good at Antonian. There, Arenado, Mata, like there's got some pieces, and maybe two of the best DB prospects in all of TAPS Division One with Malin Hall and Jeremiah Miller, both Division One offered. Malin Hall picking up Penn State and Wisconsin this offseason. Like that's not no slouch at all, right? Like these are two elite DB prospects that are going to come into this team. So, with not much elite wide receiver talent in the South besides of Jackson Coleman and Antonio Guevara really at the top. Those guys are going to be very, very important for Antonio this year. Speaking of like other elite athletes, like you said, Lutheran South is my wild card for the season. I'm not gonna say it right now. That could be a team that absolutely somehow makes state this year, and I would not be the most shocked. The offense, comes in with a lot of question marks about the quarterback. Seems like Tyler Gilly, the transfer from I believe CE King or somewhere around there, will be the guy. Cortez Taylor, Carson Rocha come back, but you also bring in Didrik Polk and Matthew Blackman this year. The receiving core, Kyrie Sadler, Braden Aaron, I don't know how to say that last name, Arkano, Papillion, like Bell comes in this year, Mazer roaming around, Will Schroeder, man, Will Schroeder's going to be a die. I don't know where they're going to play him, either at like an H-back or like a defensive line role. He is a younger brother of another shooter that went through there. I forget his name on top of my head, but man, he, like a lot of people were really high on him to be kind of a next D1 guy out of this place. The offensive line, Castillo, Reeves, Maximin Mendoza, Isaiah Castillo, bring in a couple other guys there, Maverick Grube and others that are going to make a probably 6'2" to 6'3" average offensive line in Division One, which is impressive. And defense, like it's kind of the same names, just on the upper side, led by Titus Brooks, who's going to be a standout linebacker in D2, or sorry, D1. They have a team, man, that is going to be shocking a lot of people in Division One. And they have the offensive and defensive kind of to stand with it. Like think about it like this. I think Second Baptist last year ended up being around a top 5 team in the state. LSA was right there with them into the final breath, and that's now they're just bumping up with equal competition. So a lot of exciting things. I want to say quickly that wide receiver I mentioned for Liberty Christian is Jace Johnson. He is 6'4", 180, comes over from I forget exactly where, but he's going to be a big target for Cruz Messer for them.
I think so. Ryan Schroeder, as we look at the South, and I know the narrative in the South is always that can any of these teams win a playoff game against the North? And I feel that's disrespectful in the sense that, like as Walker mentioned, there's tons of Division One talent in the South. It's just that we've seen it time and time again covering the sport that there's always a couple teams who are like they can make a run, and then we get to the first round of the playoffs and everyone's out and it's a Northern party the rest of the way through. Just your overarching thoughts on the Southern division of Division One as we look into the season.
Yeah. I'm so excited about certain guys going into their senior year. Jackson Coleman obviously is a one that you're always going to be like super excited to see. His senior year. This is what I'll say. With all that being said, there's a lot of really good star power down in the South, and I feel like that's always been the case. Another guy in that same vein is Nico Anderson. I'm so excited to see Nico's senior year. Um, I just Amir Parks Brooks. Sorry, I'm just all these guys. Like I'm so
Yeah.
excited to see their final senior season. But like grand scheme of things, none of those guys are good enough to bring a team over the hump of like. In my personal opinion, when we talk about Parish and Liberty rosters and now a legacy roster too, like those rosters are just so deep. And I just don't think there's a lot of these rosters in the South outside of a few star players that are really, going to be able to, when it matters most in the playoffs, be able to kind of get over the hill. And we kind of just saw that time and time again. A fifth seed, a fourth seed, legacy, or whoever else is coming out of this. Bishop Lynch or whoever is beating these South teams, and um, you know. You hope it's not that way, but we already kind of know how the cards have been dealt for the past decade. It's just the North is better than the South in this, and even with teams like Houston St. Thomas and their incredible days of Dante Lewis and Cardenas and stuff, like even they didn't get all the way there.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't really have a ton of faith in the South, if I'm being completely honest.
I'm going to contradict you and kind of play a little devil's advocate. I will say this. I think just because I've seen these teams in person in the spring, it's all what like to agree with your point. It's always like they never can match them in the trenches in the North. They just can't. The physicality in the trenches, they don't have the dudes to match up. They might have a skill position or two, right? But they can't match them in the trenches. I just think this year, I feel like every team in the South is a little bit bigger. I don't know if that's just like I've never seen the guys in the North in the spring, so I can't really match it,
I mean,
right?
you were on site. You were on
Right.
site, so
I
yeah,
was just looking at it. I think I was at six out of the seven of these teams in their spring.
we cannot bring that into the season. We
I
have to leave that the
I,
last season.
I,
We
I
have
got
to.
one. I got one in me. But
Oh,
like,
good.
but literally, I think they're just bigger than teams. St. Mike's is maybe the one that's not going to be as much. But like, St. Thomas, Lutheran South, Concordia, and Central and Antonian, like they're all going to be bigger in the trenches, and that's going to be exciting things to watch. Very quick storylines so we can wrap this up. Central Catholic, Easton Walker comes in. A lot of people are very excited about him coming in from Smithson Valley. Comes in for offense, but how is he going to do? Roman Garcia is another transferring quarterback. How is that going to look? The defense side of them is going to be very intriguing for Central. Concordia, new quarterback. How's that going to work? Asher Price comes in kind of earlier in the summer, kind of being the guy, but Jaden Rollins coming in from Houston Christian, who was the backup at the Jackson Angel last year, comes in as well as in the 28th. How are they going to do? Who's going to be the guy? It looks like it's going to be Asher Price, but who's going to be intriguing to see who around him. Jay Williams comes in. Carson Dimitruck comes in from at the wide receiver. I will get that name pronounced by there. Carter Holder, very excited stuff. Dalton Dar, like that's gonna be an intriguing team. St. Mike's, they need a lot to help out Nico Anderson. Brady Morris seems like the linebacker coming off of injury is going to be the main tight end for them. And who else is going to step up? Dylan Strait kind of leads the way there. St. Pius, man, it's going to be so intriguing. Kobe Mile comes in, I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think he's like, if he can keep the thing, I think it'll be the best quarterback St. Pius has had in recent memory, which is good for Amir Parks Brooks because they need him to do everything this year. And I'm really always excited about Andrew Kirkland. One last thing about St. Thomas, the quarterback battle. It's not really a battle. It's going to be more of like, how are they going to manage the two quarterbacks? Kind of how Parrish did last year. Pierce Jacobson is their MVP, no doubt. Is he going to be the smartest guy on the field for them? He knows this offense through thick and thin. He's going to get the guy everywhere. But you have a true, in my opinion, Division One quarterback behind him in Demetrius Pittman. How do you balance that? Because you can't keep him off the field as a sophomore now. So that's going to be intriguing to watch because they're loaded everywhere else. DB, linebacker, defensive line, maybe one of the best two tandems in defensive line in all of Division One with McQueen and Kimson. Offensive line looks great, led by Ted Herb. They have the pieces. Can they just get out of their own way and go make it to the title game?
It'll be interesting. We know for a fact there is the talent there to make noise, and maybe this is the year the South finally basically says, "Hey, we're here," and takes a shot at one of the top dogs in the North. It'll be fun, and we'll be sure to report on that as we get into the season. Now, let us move on to TAPS Division Two. Again, ton of stuff here, and I will reiterate. We could kind of go into every team a little bit in the North. Can't do that, or not in the North in Division One. Can't do that in the South. Like I said,
No.
we have the entire magazine that we have for you that you can go and look at each of these teams individually and get their full profiles. We're going to talk high level here about the storylines and then move through the districts. Maybe talk about that a little bit. Here's what I will say, and I'm going to pose this question first to both of you, but I'll answer it myself first. In basically the entirety of Division Two, we'll talk about, I guess, the North, because now there's bifurcation of the playoffs. There's large school and small school, which is a whole other storyline we'll report on. But I think the question is it more likely that All Saints or the field, anyone else, wins the title in Division Two? And for me, it's All Saints by a wider margin than we have ever seen in the sport. Wider than 2022 Parish, wider than 2023 Liberty.
Whoa.
You already, and that's a good question for y'all to think on. I personally believe that very, very strongly, actually. You already had Starling, Byer, Powers coming back, and then you bring in Noah Tarrant, Braylon Davis, Braden Bultz, Major Factor, William Winton, and a slew of new offensive linemen to block for them. All those guys coming back were already the best in the state. And now you bring in the best across other states into All Saints. I genuinely believe this is a wider margin in the division than Parrish was in 22 and Liberty was in 23. And I didn't even really have to think about it that hard. Again, I'm not saying this team is better than 2022 Parrish. I think 2022 Parrish might be the greatest team we've ever seen grace the
Yeah.
sport.
Seems so.
2023 Liberty also makes that claim. That being said, Walker, I'll kick it to you. I think this is the widest margin of team over the field than that we have seen since we started covering the
Mm.
sport.
I'm going to say this. That's a bold claim. And I'm going to say no for now. One, antagonize them a little bit. Show me that it is. But the second way, that Liberty and Prestonwood or Parish teams were like, you knew when the season is ended before that. All right, it's wraps already. Like
But it's wraps already in D2.
I get it 100%. I will say this, and this is going to be the overarching topic of just on All Saints because it is the big topic point for this. If someone gets mad, win as good as them. Like it it's this. Last couple years of their success, they've had the roster basically already on stat, like already there. And it's like, hey, we need a Gavin Beard, bring one guy in. Hey, give Gavin Parkhurst, who knows already these couple of guys, bring him in. It's like bring one or two pieces that like kind of to finish the puzzle. This is like you had a picture of the Mona Lisa, like three-fourths done, which is beautiful, state of the art. But you had to bring in a whole fourth to do it. But at the end of the day, though, the portrait turns in from the Mona Lisa to like Michelangelo's like something. Like it's like it is the best thing you've ever seen in your life, right? But like, are those pieces the exact pieces you need? Like it's a lot of like instead of them like one or two pieces coming in January and having the whole basically spring and summer to work together, you bring in a lot of guys right before fall camp and say, "All right, go to work." Can it work? And will it probably work? Absolutely. No one has the talent even coming close to these guys. But we've seen in years past where the All Saints team versus the Liberty team that one year that was really, really good, led by Keldon Ryan, they didn't gel as much as they needed to take that over the hump. The problem this year for every other team is there's not like a Liberty that can equal them on talent. That is the issue.
There's not even a Regents like there was last year.
Right. That's the issue as well. So like I'm saying all this point of like, yeah, is basically wraps in certain aspects, but they're gonna go through growing pains. Remember this from last year. There was times where this All Saints team was struggling against TCS Lubbock, and we were all going, "What in the world is going on?" Does this same team with all these new guys coming in and maybe I'm gonna guess the Ryan Powerses and the Kingston Byers are still the leaders. I'm not gonna say they're not, but like with a lot of new fresh faces, can they still overcome those type of like what is going on moments? And that's gonna be intriguing to watch.
And that's what I'll say before you get into it, Ryan. That always, if anything, is the Achilles heel of All Saints. They have never, ever been short on talent. But we've seen a lot of moments where there's undisciplined moments in there, where there's,
Mm.
15 penalties in a game. People
Hmm.
kind of lose their head. You look at this and you're like, does this team really like each other? And can they play as a cohesive unit? That
Mm.
was the key point I think we've seen in the last year and maybe 2 years that they really cleaned that up. And that led to the level of dominance we've seen. But that's the problem is I don't know if they're going to see that level of adversity that might bring that out. They might be such a cakewalk throughout the year that we never even have to know if these guys are going to be tested. I now realize what I'm saying is a no win on either side of the aisle. Number one, all Saints are going to be pissed off because I'm saying I'm not giving them any bulletin board material. Aaron Beck's going to be like, none of you can watch this podcast. You're all going to get high egos and, you're banned from watching TXPS media. Everyone on the other side of the aisle is like, they just glaze All Saints. They don't care about us. Well, it's because All Saints is All Saints. That being said, before I get myself in an even bigger hole, Ryan, your thoughts on the argument that we've laid out?
I got a couple things. I got a
Go for
couple
it.
things after what y'all said. First things first, I got to answer the question. The answer is Dallas Christian 22-23. If you're asking the question, team versus the field, the team that went 13-1 and basically mowed their district, then in the playoffs, in 4 games in the playoffs, they allowed 6 points to Colleyville Covenant. They allowed 7 points to Brookhill. They shut out Trinity Christian Lubbock. They shut out Cypress Christian in the state championship. In total, in those 4 games, they scored, let me do some quick math here, north of 150 points in those 4 games combined. And they only let up 13 points. The only loss that year was to a Fort Worth Christian at Fort Worth Christian, if y'all remember that game. I can't remember. Was it you, Walker, that was at that game? No.
No, that's
Or
a
was it?
huge.
Oh, I was there. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there at that game. Yeah. So all that to be said is that team is by far the best team I've ever seen from a team versus the field, right? Would a 22 parish smack them? Yes. But I'm just saying, like, for a team versus the field. To go into your All Saints point, Wes, I love the non-district that All Saints does every year.
That's huge for them.
You love it, dude. Beck loves to get Parrish on the schedule week 0. You got Liberty on the schedule week 1. You got Cooper on the schedule week 2. You got Prestonwood on the schedule week 4. Like, all of that is incredible. Now, I will say All Saints was able to get the 3 North teams all to come to their crib, which I think is going to be hilarious. But you get Lovejoy, a public school matchup. You get Gunter again. Like, he just does a great job at just absolutely being like, hey, you want to have a conversation at the end of the year? Who's the best private school team in the entire state? Well, we're just going to beat them all at the beginning of the year. So you already know who's the best when it comes down to, who's in Waco. In terms of the district and who can actually compete with them in D2, I think y'all hit it right on the nose. It really won't be close. There's no regions how they used to be last. It's just going to be entirely different setup. So, all that to say is yes, everything you said is true, but All Saints will have some good hitters at the beginning of the year to kind of see where we rank them in terms of an all-time great team.
Here's what I'm also interested in. Can Midland make a push towards a state title? Remind me, Midland's going to be in the big school, yes, or they're going to be in the bigger school classification.
Yeah.
I'm not that puts them up against All Saints, but I think they're incredibly talented as well. Franco and Cruz, as we mentioned off the top, those were 2 guys that we said were the best in TXPS that we noticed at the retreat, and that's regardless of division, and they're in D2.
Mm-hmm.
Cruz could win Division II MVP. However, the loss of Rowdy Pierce, Coy Hayes, Isaiah Matthews, and Brady Young, that's going to be tough to replace. And that is always Midland's identity. It's less of the Caleb Cruz type, big, flashy athletes, and more of the dudes that are just massive in the trenches and are going to put your face mask in the dirt over and over and over again. I don't think they have enough to stop All Saints, as mentioned. I do think they can take second place. Walker, I know, and again, we love Midland Christian. Those folks are great to us out there. We hope to get back to a game at some point. Maybe we can talk to y'all, make that happen. That being said,
shout out to Mustang. Shout out to Mustang Network, by the way. Shout out to big fans of them.
Top tier organization. That being said, I mean, I think, and by the way, we cannot ever again mention anything about bus fatigue or Midland traveling, because after last year, we now know that's impossible to bring up because it doesn't exist for Midland and Midland only. That being said, I think they have the guys and the talent this year in Franco and Cruz, but we're gonna need to see, some of the supporting cast, the guys like the Brady Youngs and the Coy Hayes, really, really step up and go hard.
Yes.
Yeah, I picked them as my. Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't gotten the magazine, go get the magazine. I picked them in my state championship prediction in the state to go against All Saints. I think it's gonna. I think Midland is. Man, it's so funny. I was the hater for so long, and I've fully hit the other curve at this point. I've drank the juice, and after talking to Caleb Cruz's father at the retreat, I think I've fully switched the other direction. I'm so on board at this point. It's not even remotely close. So maybe I can get a bus fatigue shirt, but the like I don't know, maybe with good intent instead of bad intent last
Did y'all ever get yours, or do I have all three still? Okay, I need to
Yeah.
year.
get
You
y'all
have
them.
But
all this. See, you're
I
just
still
keeping them
have
for
y'all's
yourself.
New Braunfels Christians hat that I'm wearing right now.
Wow,
There's
what a
what a pull, right? Thank you. Uh,
yes.
there's a lot of stuff we need to transfer around for week 3, for a specific reason that we'll talk about later down
We
the line.
do. Walker for in terms of Midland Christian, and then you
Yes.
can take that and go wherever you want to
Awesome.
in D2. But that being said, I think the big pieces are there, and I think their top end talent now might be better than it's ever been in the past with Cruz and Franco, having another year under their belt. I want to see, the supporting cast come along. They got Callaway Rodriguez. Anyone with a Rodriguez in their last name for Midland immediately means that we're going to look at them to be very good. Your thoughts on where and how far the Mustangs can go in this stacked Division Two?
I'm just intrigued. I will say this: the Liberty Christian game week 0 is going to be the test of everything for me. Like it will show me, okay, are they legit? Will they be a title contender or not? Because even though they do play like Jim Ned, Wall, and Brock, which are good public school teams, don't get me wrong. I don't know. I don't know what I can take from those games. The Liberty Christian game, if you go, hey, a top 3, 4 team in Division 1 you're competing against and you end up winning, that's when I take you seriously for the rest of the slate. But like, I just think the losses of Rowdy Pierce and Isaiah Matthews are huge. Like, talking to people around the state about that team, of just being like, yeah, that offensive line led by Pierce was just dominating folks. And then Isaiah Matthews with whatever 13 sacks or whatever he ended up with, which is a dominant year. Like, those guys are going to be massive losses for them, and they bring a lot of guys, bring guys back like Villafranco and stuff like that. I'm really excited to see the addition of Kobe Baldonino. He's a tight end, 6'3", 6'4", comes in from Odessa High. Like, there's some pieces in there that I'm excited to see how they can act. But it's a lot of question marks, and I'm not a fan of question marks right now. That's the whole preseason things, but like, you have to have some proven stuff. And that is where you go with Fort Worth Christian. Bo Pearson, Luke Stevens, Evan Rosenkrantz. You come in, you bring Colton Waddle, who also was really good at the retreat as well. Like, you bring in Wyatt Watkins, who just committed to, I forget, a college. Sorry, forget what the school's name. Brock Robinson's coming back. You bring in some other guys. And I'm very excited about some of the younger guys, KJ Singleton, Jack Kennedy, some rising freshmen. They have pieces to really contend. I'm really excited about this team. Um, Luckily for them, and this is when we get into the whole overarching conversation about the joint playoffs. If they get that top 3 seed, I mean, they are the clear cut favorites right now to win the Division 2 South championship. Uh, for how you kind of have it, right? It's gonna be like them and TWCA, uh, Grace Community, and some other teams we'll talk about in a second, are the ones that maybe compete with that. But like, if they just make the playoffs, it's theirs. But like, I'll talk about my team in a second if that's okay with y'all. But like, Fort Worth Christian just has to make it. If they beat Fort Worth Midland Christian, which they've had trouble with in the past, that's if they can do that, get over that hump, awesome. I'm just saying. And moving on to another team. SCS, man, I'm ecstatic. I'm really just excited about the Steve Wood era. I think this team knows what to do. The guys they've brought in, but also the key returners. I was, just being real, like, hesitant on Huffstetler at the quarterback position for the past couple years. But seeing him in the spring and seeing him what he was kind of doing at the retreat, I was like, okay, they got a dude there. And I'm really excited what he can do this year. And everyone I've talked to is praising him. And I think he's a bona fide MVP of this team. Owen Haller returns. Jack Linus returns. Tyler Buki returns. So I'm really excited about. And Malcolm Anderson picks up an offer from Baylor this offseason. He's going to be one of the best 29s in the entire state. You bring in guys like Trevon Taylor, Seth James, Cam Becerra, who's going to be one of the best offensive linemen maybe in the district and in the state this year. Like, you got some guys, Julian Bell as well. You're bringing in some pieces to this team that you're going, okay, it could get interesting this year. And I'm not that we didn't make the prediction that they're going to beat a Midland or Fort Worth Christian, but I'm just saying this, and maybe it's the SES and me. I don't think those seats are like put in stone right now. I think that's in pencil, and I think SES might be the team to do it. and same with Grapevine Faith. They bring in back Charlie Bunch, Cody Bowman. Really, people are excited about him. Jude Sealis is one of the best defensive linemen in the entire district. You bring in a lot, man, and I'm really excited to see this team grow. Of course, offensive line, Scott Hadaway returns, Slade Corley, and of course the big name up front, Wyatt Powers, who's going to be end up winning the best 29 offensive lineman in the entire country, right? So you got some places all around. This district, I'll say this, overarching thoughts. None of these spots are sealed besides All States at one. That's what makes it terrifying. And a lot of this matters for seeding. Midland Christian, you need these wins, you need these points to help your seeding for the playoffs. Grapevine Faith, SES, you're fighting for playoffs. Remember, top 3 seeds make playoffs. None of these like 4th seed, you barely get in anymore. You have to be one of these top 3 seeds. Fort Worth Christian, Midland Christian, Southwest, and Grapevine Faith are all fighting for it. Very excited. I'll end it with this. That is the District of Doom for the next 2 years.
It is for sure. And then we are now going to transition into the District of Not Doom in Division Two. That is District Two. Overarching thoughts as somebody that I can't say I played in this division because I remember the golden era of TAPS Division Two, District Two, whenever it was all Tyler schools and Dallas Christian. It was so beautiful to have all of us together in one little bubble and just to absolutely hate every team you played against. It is probably the most fun I've ever had playing football. That has been dead and buried for a long time, but the teams in that district constitute Brook Hill Grace, Grace Prep, McKinney Christian, and Bishop Dunn. That being said, my high level take on this, it's a much more favorable shake for Grace and Brook Hill than were the districts with Regents, Hyde Park, etc. I mean, obviously, not having a team like Regents in there or even a team like Hyde Park is going to constitute probably more wins than especially last year of both those teams. What I will say is, and they're going to get underlooked because they're not in that District of Doom. But Zach Ryle and Slade Etheridge are 2 college quarterbacks. And they sneakily might be among the top in the state. Zach Ryle was 6'2", 215. Slade Etheridge is 6'3", 215. I mean, they're both physically impressive. Zach Ryle obviously put up great stats last year. Slade only played in a couple games his freshman season, and then he was injured. I think, and again, then you bring back Braden Alexander in the backfield, who since his freshman year has been an absolute bowling ball. We're going to figure a lot about Grace in that game against First Baptist. And it's crazy to say that the measuring stick for a team in TAPS Division 2 is going to be a team in TAPS Division 4 until you realize that's First Baptist that would do decently if they were put in TAPS Division 1. That being said, I'm very excited. I've beaten the dead horse. I'm not going to sit here and talk about Grace for 20 minutes, but between Andrew Gardner, Bruin Henry, and the receiver that we had at the retreat, and Christian Henry, all guys that I like a lot. Grace always is going to have a couple guys at the top of the chain, kind of like Midland, that are good athletes, and then basically a supporting cast of guys that look like me, are not very physically impressive, but know their routes like the back of their hand, and then compete very hard, which tells you I wasn't, the standout athlete, but I gave it my best. That being said, I think it's going to be, and I know it's going to be a race between Grace and Brook Hill for the top of this district. And it pains me to say, as a Grace alum, it's Brook Hill's district to lose. Sidney Rouleau is a beast. Over 30 plus Division 1 offers. And then they've got a sneaky good defense last year. They never allowed more than 30 points in an elite district last year given up. I'm scrolling back to their page. But dude, between Sidney Rouleau, then you've got Paul Lapointe at running back, who's fantastic. Gregory Lacrosse Groden, and then obviously Zach Ryle. Again, I'm not saying that any of these guys or any of these teams are going to go up and rival an All Saints. And quite frankly, I think both these teams might struggle in District 1. I think Brook Hill would do decently. I think they'd find themselves probably around, a Fort Worth Christian SCS type level. I think they'd make the playoffs in District 1, but they are primed to win this district and hopefully at least get a playoff win, especially because I think they're in the smaller segment of Division Two. So yeah, they might be poised to make a playoff run. I think that'd be a great matchup to see them against Fort Worth Christian. Team I do want to talk about briefly is McKinney Christian, because McKinney Christian sneakily has some dogs between Jackson Whitner, Noah Matabo, and then Chase Brugill, the receiver, tight end, and linebacker. Sean O'Reilly actually, for some reason, knows a lot more about McKinney Christian than I do. He's been very high on them. I think they're a team that we've got slotted fourth in this district, but I do think could take a crack at some of the top guys. And then also I got to mention the team we have above them with his Grace Prep. Noah Bonjour is fantastic. I mean, he averaged 9.1 yards per carry. He's an incredible running back. He's a guy, like I said, that gets overshadowed because he's not in District 101 of the top dogs. I think he's fantastic. You pair him with senior wide receiver Jackson Bryson, or sorry, junior wide receiver Jackson Bryson, and junior linebacker David Jurgensen. And I think, especially in a district where you're not absolutely going to war every week like you would be against All Saints, Midland, and Fort Worth Christian, I think, as much as I think it's Brook Hills to lose, I think there's wiggle room behind that. And I think this might be the district of surprise that we could see come to the forefront. That might be the longest monologue I do just because it's the district Grace is in. It's a district I'm going to be hopefully a little bit more familiar with. Walker, none of us had the expectation that this district's going to go out and then basically compete against District 1. I think there are some great athletes in this district. I think there's potential for surprise. I'm curious to see your overarching thoughts on it.
Yeah, I spoke a lot in the other districts, so I'll shut up a little bit here. I think the Brook Hill Grace community rivalry that should have a name, and I can't believe it doesn't have a name, and will instate a name as time goes on. It's going to be the TXPS rivalry. Is going to be the battle for the district championship. But Grace Prep, McKinney Christian will be very good teams to watch.
I think so. Ryan Schroeder, before we move on to District 3, overarching thoughts on District 2.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you wrapped it up pretty well. From seeing Brook Hill at 7-on-7, I mean, they just look big. I'm gonna be so honest with you. They're a different force, and but I did see I saw some good stuff out of Grace too. It was a great way for us to get a good glimpse at both the offenses there. And I just genuinely thought that Brook Hill is just a step above everybody in terms of just the true size factor when looking at teams in that district.
No, I think so. And then as we move on quickly to TAPS Division 3, initially I just said it's regions. Next question. Or is it that simple? The Knights lose a massive amount of production, in my opinion. Then they'll rely on largely untested faces, save Keelan Milligan, who racked in 7 touchdowns as a sophomore. Colin Angelo, Matthew Robb are back to anchor the defense. I think it's still going to be Regents District to lose, but Walker, you're a little more familiar with the South. We talked a lot about Crawford Moffitt and his performance at the retreat, winning quarterback MVP, and then Houston Shaw is now back off of injury as a legit contender for Division Two MVP, in my opinion, because he will put up video game numbers in that district. And then you have, the question of will St. Andrews, St. Joseph's, or San Antonio Christian even have a pulse, quite frankly. I know I think it's Ethan Young as a San Antonio Christian running back that is fantastic. That's the main guy I know out of those teams, just because, I mean, it's just facts. In the past couple of years, they haven't been anything to write home about. They'll have a couple good games, but they're not going to compete against the Regents and the Hyde Parks of the world. Looking at kind of that structure as we have Regents slotted at the top, Hyde Park is a legit contender, and then the bottom three just kind of milling around. Your thoughts as we look into this district next year?
Yeah, I'll start from the bottom and go to the top. The interesting thing is, I think St. Anthony is a young team, excited to see what they can do. I met the head coach at TAPSCon this offseason. Great guy, really excited about his team. They lose their quarterback to the portal this offseason, so that's going to hurt them, of course. And who's going to step up is Ethan Martinez. And just let's see how this team does. This is a team that I'm gonna respect them for one thing. This team could have easily went independent, and they did it. And I think that's very impressive, and I respect them for that just by itself. San Antonio Christian has a lot of great pieces. Ben Allen is a all-state safety, but going into the quarterback because they lose their quarterback. Briggs Barth comes back, big piece. Asher Zimmerman and Ethan Young in the run game, and then just the overall offensive game is going to be the key pieces for them and seeing how much they do. I just don't know how good they are in the trenches compared to the top teams, and that's going to be the issue for them. St. Joseph, they lose their quarterback that was going to be the heir apparent this year to the portal, bring in another guy in Albert Chavez, I think, who's going to be the guy for them this year. But Mauricio Vega is going to be a dude, and I'm very high on rising sophomore Xavier Flores, who was an all-district player as a freshman. So those two guys are going to be the guys to watch out for. Also with, what is his name? Tunde Siambande. I'm not going to get that name right, but he is a dude at the receiver position. Watch out for him. Now, let's talk about the big two, and this is what this district is all about. Hyde Park Regions. I've made predictions in years past, right? That I'm like, St. Mike's is going to compete with Regents. And we did this whole thing years ago and we were like, blah, 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 blah. And I was completely wrong. So I will not say that. I'm just going to say this. This game usually in years past is over by halftime. I don't think that's the case this year. I think they've reloaded and they have a lot of pieces to make this interesting. And Regents loses a ton of production, like tons of production all over the place. Um, quickly, let's do Regents. Jack Devine. I mean, he is quarterback one in the class, quarterback one in all of private school. Like he is the dude, and he's coming off a large school player of the year type season. Incredible, incredible season, and he's only better. That's the scary part. The thing about it is, yes, he loses one of the best receiver cores ever for Regents, right? And one of the best in TXPS last year. But I'm really excited about this team led by Kelly Millington, who's going to be a great all-state caliber receiver this year. But I'm really excited about Lucas Spain and Truett Middlebrook. Truett Middlebrook, especially. Spain is also going to be a guy who almost has like 700 yards receiving this year. Truett Middlebrook would be a quarterback one at pretty much every other school in the state of Texas or in TXPS. He is going to be a Division One caliber quarterback in my opinion. He's an absolute dude, but he also is one to be the most athletic and one of the best athletes on this region's team as well. And they're just going to put him at receiver, and that's going to be scary sights for every team in Division Two. He's going to be great this year. I'm really excited about him, but also Ben Anderson, Braylon Compton on offense, and Truman Hill is going to be a Division One caliber lineman when it ends up. But yeah, Cole Canepa, Max Schrader, they just have so many other guys. Drew Shepard coming in as a starter from last year as a sophomore. Like they have pieces all over the place. I already kind of did the hype on Hyde Park earlier, but like Crawford Marfut, Houston Shaw, that is the combination. Tom Burgess comes back at the running back spot. Their receiving core with Garrett Gunno and Houston Shaw are going to be really, really good this year. They have some young underclassmen that I'm excited about. And then offensive line is led by UTSA commit Simon Watson Johnson, and some other guys. Defensive line wise, Victor Vizhnevsky, that's maybe how you say it. Senior defensive lineman, 6'2 muscle. Like he's going to be one of the better defensive tackles in all of the district. Um, Tucker Shala leads this defense. Summarizing here, Regents is the king. They haven't lost a home game in 5 years. There's a reason for that. All I'm going to say is I think Roby's headed this team in the right direction, and this game might be more interesting this year. That's where I'm going to leave it. But it could get really interesting this year, and that's what I'm excited about because this district definitely needs that.
I think so. And I like seeing, in the past, District 3 has just kind of been like, we don't, no one in here is going to compete. We know that St. Joseph will, be good, but then it's just kind of like, they're kind of there and we'll talk about it on a preview and then they get bounced round one. I do like seeing Hyde Park and Regents go back in there. So now we know in every district, there's at least competition at some level. That makes me happy. And I do think there's room for those teams to jockey a little bit for positioning. And I'd love to see Hyde Park come out and, take a stab at the top of the district. That being said, one more district in D2, and then we're going to go much faster with the rest of this because we are dragging our feet a little bit, but that just tells you how much we like talking about Texas private school football. Last part, TAPS Division 4, which constitutes Second Baptist, TWCA, Victoria St. Joseph's, Fort Bend Christian, and then Cypress Christian. Here's my overarching thoughts. Second Baptist in the post-tune era always will have talent on the periphery. Casey Dunn is highly touted, and Amari Sykes is going to be a monster at edge with Griffin Lewis locking down the offensive line. Cypress, they lose a ton. Brian Broaddus leaving to Second Baptist is going to hurt them a lot. That's kind of a situation where you lose Zach Williams for Lynch, one of the top guys, young guys in the state, except we at least keep this kid in TXPS. But Dyson Zara was a monster at 7-on-7. He looks up to the task. Also, Michael Turner was impressive at 7-on-7 with him running a 10-7 100-meter dash. And Fort Bend Christian, losing T2 is tough, and quite frankly, they're going to struggle, I think. Tibbetts, Cooper, and Wallace should help them steady the ship, in my opinion. So if I'm looking at this from a very comprehensive look, I mean, I still think it's Second Baptist's district to lose. And again, Walker knows more about the South than I do. But losing Cannon Toon obviously hurts. I mean, he's a guy that obviously he was fantastic physically and athletically, but just as the guy that wins having him there. I mean, that was, I think, his biggest asset to Second Baptist, just being a proven winner. And you knew as long as Cannon Toon was on the field, there was a fighting chance. He got them up 14 points against All Saints and kept them in that game for a long time where they were, incredibly outmatched. That being said, it's interesting because TWC has a lot of talent with Baron Meacham and company. Walker, I still think it's going to be Second Baptist District to lose. They have a ton of talent that you also saw during the spring. Your thoughts on the district as a whole?
Yeah, I'll kind of keep this short and sweet. Second Baptist, I think this is the best team they've had and since us starting TXPS, maybe. Maybe not like those first years. Maybe that's a little bit different. That first state title appearance they had versus DC, but like since then, this is the best team they've had. I really do think so. The other one that would rival it is not last year's state championship team, but the year before that. But a lot of people are really high on Casey Dunn, Peyton Jones coming back, Dylan Whitfield. I just think they have some dudes all over the place, and like Brian Broad is coming back. Sorry, not coming back, but coming into this team as kind of a maybe wide receiver one is going to be huge for them. Will Newhouse returns. I'm gonna say it. I think this offensive line for Second Baptist is the best in Division Two. I am gonna go to my grave saying that this year they're gonna be top three at least in all of TXPS this year. I think they have just so much talent. Their height, they're gonna be 6'2" to 6'3" across the board. They're gonna average 6'3", 270 across the board on offensive line. You just don't have that many places. And that's what's going to be the difference maker. And Mary Sykes comes in to help their defensive line, and Emmanuel Bowens and Bradley Harris return to do that. I just think this team is the team that's going to meet Fort Worth All Saints again. And I can't believe this is happening for 3 straight years, but I really do think it's going to be 3 straight years of Fort Worth All Saints versus Second Baptist. And because this team is just so good, I think they're going to run away with this district. The thing about it is, I'm a big fan of Wilderness Christian. They just lost so much senior production from last year, and they're a young team, and that's going to be interesting, right? For Emilio Fernandez is going to be the guy, but he has just no starting experience, and that's going to be a hard thing. But George Hominek, who's now a TXPS intern, shout out to him, but like he's going to be their main running back workhorse. A lot of people are very high on Pierce Caltabonato. That is not how you say that. Caltabiano. He's going to be their main, like he supposedly he is as tall as Julio Fernandez, but he's also as fast and athletic as Baron Meacham. He's a combination of both, and you have those three as your receiving core is a scary sight. Offensive line's going to look good this year. Blake Hollis, I just want to shout out that kid. As a freshman, we knew about him on a stacked defense, and he has risen through the ranks as just being more and more impressive, and or as a sophomore maybe. But he had a elite defensive line led by seniors last year. He is now the guy. He might be the best defensive lineman in that whole district. And that's how good this kid's going to be this year. So expect a big thing from him. But yeah, Eli Hall, a lot of other guys coming in. It's going to be a good year for Wilderness Christian. You already talked about them. I'm going to just say this. Wild card is Victoria St. Joseph. I am a big fan of Charlie Stefka. Nick Bludo is going to be a good tight end defensive end for them. They just have, and what's their offensive lineman? Isaiah Pardina. That's a dude. I watched his tape for the magazine. He's going to be an absolute dude this year, all district player. They're going to be the wild card. I just don't know if they can get over the top of the other two.
I think so. It'll be interesting. Again, St. Joseph's is interesting because it's not for people unfamiliar with the sport. They're not the front of mind, but I do think, as you mentioned, they have enough talent to at least make things interesting in spots. Ryan Schroeder, for the last two divisions we round up, for the last two districts as we round out Division Two, any thoughts on what's going to be a very competitive division top to bottom?
Walker stole my flow. I love St. Joseph's at 7-on-7, man. They were just so fun to watch. Stefka is such a massive dude. He is 6'5". It's 195 doesn't feel right. He just looks bigger. He looks
Yeah.
bigger than the 195 that he portrays. And yeah, Stefka looked good too. Bluto and Stefka, sorry. Stefka at the 190 and then yeah, Bluto at the 6'5". I mean, they were both of them were incredible together out there at 7-on-7. I'll say this about this district in total though. This is a down year for this district. I will say. The Second Baptist, loses a couple pieces with obviously Cannon Soon and Langston Davis, and Baptiste all gone this year. I'm excited to see what Casey Dunn can do, but yeah, no one's telling you. Santi being on too from TWCA. It's like y'all said, this isn't the same district that it used to be, but there's still some dogs in here, and I hope Meacham can make some noise as well, being probably the best player in that entire district. I'd say. What do we put him as the district MVP, right? Am I
Yeah.
am I dumb? Yeah, of
No.
course. So yeah,
You just can't kick to him. If you kick it to him in any aspect, that's
yeah,
dumb. That's how I see
yeah,
that. So
yeah. So
There we go. So as you round out Division Two, we're going to go through TAPS Division Three and TAPS Division Four. The first thing that I'm going to hit on in D3 is, do we see a return to glory for Dallas Christian? And the interesting thing is, we only had one player from DC listed on the TXPS Division Three watch list, which, from a squad that typically has some of the best talent in the division, you would usually expect more there. And I went back and I looked at the roster. They're going to have some dudes, but a lot of their guys that they brought in last year that they expected, to be uber talented. There's a lot of injuries on that squad, early mid year. I think Isaiah Lane didn't play that much, and they're a guy that they think is going to be a Division One talent. Between him, Dylan Bell, Cooper Johnson, who I love, who's a guy that's just going to be a Swiss Army knife. I think he came over from Forney. They literally call him Mini Manziel. I mean, that's his nickname. And I watched him play. I mean, that dude, if he gets the ball in his hands, whether it's they have him at running back, quarterback, and a wildcat receiver, scat back. I think he has the wheels to make things happen. Then obviously Jack Lamont, who is that guy that we have on the watch list at linebacker, who I think will be linebacker of the year. I mean, he's incredible. The question for me is, who is the centerpiece running back? This might be the first time this late in the season that we do not know who that guy is for DC. Who's going to be the Zach Hernandez, who is the kid with the curly hair from 2022?
Sean
Um,
Coleman. Oh,
who?
Sean. It's the guy after.
Jaleel Brown.
Yes,
Who's
good
going to be the
pull.
Jaleel Brown, the Zach Hernandez, in recent years, the from last year.
Dylan,
Yeah, Dylan Stanley. Again, there's so many, and they're always
DJ Stanley.
fantastic.
Sorry. Yeah.
TJ Stanley, there we go. They're always fantastic. There's got to be one. We just don't know who that is. But I went back and I looked through DC's roster. I mean, they're still going to be fantastic. But that's also the question: is this a year that Covenant can make a stab at DC? We built that up as a storyline last year, and obviously it turned out not to be true. It seems always that Covenant makes this game kind of ugly in the first half, and then DC pulls away. But between Connor Evans, Ryan Hillner, and Caden Cosba, they make up a great core. But I don't know if the supporting cast just has the capability not to get drowned by all the talent on DC's roster. With Prince of Peace, I think there's going to be growing pains, obviously, as they move up to TAPS 11-man football. But senior quarterback Trip Wilcox at 6'5", 190 looked really good at 7-on-7. And for Pantego, I'm very, very excited to see Hayes Young and Landry Kemp, who was a 1,000-yard receiver last year, by the way, take a step forward as upperclassmen. When Ryan and I went and watched them play against Lubbock Christian, I mean, both those guys were very, very good against an eventual state champion team. I think Pantego is another team that's a bit of a sleeper that has the potential to be very good. And just because they're not named, Dallas Christian, Lubbock Christian, Covenant, maybe, that they get underrated a little bit. Looking at District 1, what on earth is Lubbock Christian going to be? Lubbock Christian, they bring a lot back on defense, but obviously you lose, a Keaton Lee, a Fleming, who's the kid that, I'm talking about, the older brother,
Data Atkins.
Day Atkins. That's ultimate disrespect on my part for blanking on Day Atkins' name, who was an absolute dude last year. But I think more than anything, we have people asking on the story about this. They're like, how did y'all have, Lubbock Christian ranked, so low, or fourth, one, two, three, fourth in the division under DC, TCS Lubbock, and Brazos Christian, whenever we still bring 9 guys back? Well, it's because there's so much shakeup offensively. And even more than that, you lose Softly. Softly's one of these
yeah,
guys that
yeah,
it's like Mike Wheeler, it's like
yeah,
an Aaron Beck, where he is the face of the program. You listen to that dude talk for 5 seconds, and you're like, oh, this is a very captivating figure. You can tell that he is kind of the straw that stirs the drink for Lubbock Christian. I am incredibly curious, and I can't believe, and I have to scroll down to their page to see the head coach that they bring in being Sam Collins, and that was a dude that was under Softly, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
So
yep,
you assume that he's going to have that same culture there. I think that's better than trying to bring somebody back. But again, you still lose. You lose Major Tucker. You lose so many of these
yeah,
great
I think
players.
at a Division 2 level or Division 3 level, when you lose three like collegiate big
yeah,
players, that's hard
yeah.
to replace. And
No,
I
it
think
is.
all three of the teams above them have better talent, and that's the issue.
Yeah, I think it is. And we can get into that a little bit more. And again, this is going to be more of a wide swath overview of TAPS Division Three. But also, I kind of to round out that conversation, I want to talk a little bit about Brazos Christian because Brazos Christian, the runner up in TAPS Division Four, moves up to TAPS Division Three. We've been saying this is coming for a couple years. The Brazos Valley is exploding in population. We knew there was a higher demand for private school, and that would push them forward. I think they are set up perfectly to go into this, especially with Jordan Black, who didn't not only didn't win a title in D3, he won a state title in Division Two. So he's no stranger to playing this level of competition. I'm interested just to see exactly what happens. But between Carson Ramsey and all the talent on that team, not Jordan Black, Hunter Black at defensive end committed to TCU. I mean, Walker, I think this is a team that is more than capable of competing in Division Three. Hence why we have them ranked third in the division.
Absolutely. I think this team is going to be really, really good this year. I think the big addition, of course, is Cooper Murr returning to Brazos Christian. And I think it's very funny where Hudson Jacobus was excellent for Brazos Christian last year, and I'm glad he had the time to do it. But it's very funny having a quarterback who played 2 years of Brazos Christian go play 6A football in the state of Texas and then come back to your team. Like that's value. Yes, Brian Hyde did not do great last year, but having the experience at 6A football and coming to a Division 3 school is huge for them. And I think he's going to have an MVP caliber season. Carson Ramsey, Hunter Black, Reed Jackson returns, Kark Palomo, that secondary that Sean's always really excited about.
What does he call it?
The swaggy secondary. I can't believe you made me say that, but I did say it. But yeah, Landon Sands, Davis Wall, Ty Urban, who's going to be a great player for them, Jack Williams, uh, Darius Bumskill. Like, there's some pieces all over the place that are going to be really, really good for this Brazos Christian team to compete. It's the whole thing of like, yeah, they play Regents non-district, and then they play Tyler All Saints. Like they're going to have a tough season this year because they play brand new teams that they're not usually familiar with to the fullest extent. That's the thing. It's like I'm really, Holy Cross is the interesting one. They lose their quarterback. How do they respond there? Who steps up? I think this is, in terms of like, when they went to the back-to-back title games, they had a lot more talent on this roster, but the grit and the heart and the discipline, toughness is still there. Who steps up to the challenge besides the two linebackers? New Braunfels Christian, Rye Roberts is going to be an MVP caliber guy for this season. For him, he's a great, great athlete committed to Montana. When you have a Division 1 guy on a Division 3 team, that says enough. But I'm really high on the quarterback as well. Brady Joseph, Quincy Calder, they got some pieces over there that I'm excited about. The team I'm gonna see cause the most chaos is just Geneva. Reed Outerholt is one of the best just athletes in this division. Caleb Quidadamo is maybe an MVP. He might be like MVP frontrunner with Dylan Belt this year. He had 4,000 yards last year, whatever it was.
So underrated. We have to talk about
He
him
can
more. He is
sling the
fantastic.
pigskin, man. It was so fun to watch him at the retreat. Watching him, I just remember I think texting y'all after watching him in spring ball and just going, okay, I see it now. Like I see it with my eyes. This guy can go play quarterback at the next level. I think them with Shane McNew as that 28 guy who can be just do it all for them. They're going to be a team to watch. Quickly, I just Bay Area. I finally got to go down there for the spring. Big fan of Keaton Hall. Great running back. Might be running back of the year nominee for Division 3 this year. Plus, in the middle, Charles Kubler, who's going to be another great player. Caleb Skeeter. Like, they got some pieces around them that are going to be an interesting team coming back into Division 3 ranks from being independent the past couple years. But I'll do that's my kind of overarching thoughts on the kind of the South, since that's kind of my area. It's intriguing. Brazos Christian is just returns a lot of talent, and they bring in more. When you have a TCU commit on your defensive line in Division 3, that says enough. They just are talented, and that's why they're up there. But can they get over the hump of having a bigger, tougher district? And that's going to be interesting for them. Everyone else, can they make the next step? And I think it's going to be interesting. That's why we have, sorry, a lot of the southern schools being higher than some of the northern schools in Division 3, and that's interesting to watch.
I think that's typically the way it shakes out because I think traditionally the North in D1 has DC at the front and then Lubbock Christian there. But I think besides them, because DC's district is quite frankly never good. All Saints was fantastic last year and did much better, but ultimately still got weed whacked by DC. I think usually there's a lot more competition in the South and a lot more depth. traditionally. I'm excited to see how that shakes out. I am also curious, and I'll throw it to both of you. I think if Brazos Christian makes it out of the South, what do you think a title game, say DC makes it, a title game between DC and Brazos Christian looks like? I personally, off the rip, am not going to immediately say that DC kills Brazos Christian. I think when you think of Cooper Murr, Hunter Black, and then Carson Ramsey, I think they, because that's a team that played with First Baptist for a little bit there. I think it's a team that has a puncher's chance against DC.
See, this is just this is the mindset that we have. This is what I had about DC all last year. I'm watching DC play against certain teams, and I'm like, man, who's gonna beat DC coming into playoffs? And then it's just like, no, they just figure it out every single time. They figure out a way to sneak their way back in the championship every single year, and they just go out and win the state championship every year. I think my true opinion is that this is one of their best foes that they've faced in D3 yet. Even some of the Lubbock Christian teams, you know, uh, the Lubbock Christian team that obviously played them. What was it, 2 years ago? What was
last
the Lubbock
year.
Christian last year? Who played them 2 years? Or no, Lubbock Christian won 2 years before that.
Well, no, Lubbock Christian won last year, and then it was Holy Cross DC for 2 years.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Holy Cross is another one that was definitely the one that like put up a fight against them. I think Brazos Christian almost is going to give a Holy Cross type of fight to Dallas Christian. I truly think that Brazos is. It maybe those both those teams are better. Maybe you could even argue that Dallas Christian at that time and Holy Cross at that time were better than the Brazos Christian now and the DC where we're going to see this year. But in terms of just team for team and the battle that they're going to have, I think it's going to be close. I think those I kind of like those matchups pretty well.
Could
I
you
think so as well.
do you think like Jordan Black just like during the middle of the game he just like rips off the Brazos Christian stuff, walks over to the DC sideline and he goes like I'm back home baby and then like explodes the team? That would be kind of fire. That would be a good
I
storyline.
don't. I think he's too scared of Mike Wheeler to do that, and I guarantee you this will get clipped at some point in the season. But again, for years I was terrified of Mike Wheeler, and I still am a little bit. But dude, he's an intimidating figure.
Yeah.
I think if Jordan Black went over and did that on Mike Wheeler's sideline, I think Wheeler would have him run suicides until he threw up.
It's like the Toy Story thing of like I'm done with you now. I throw you to the side. It's the new blood now. You go back to your Brazos Christian side.
The only thing that could scare a Mike Wheeler is a mariachi band in the what's it called, the southwest northwest end zone, whatever. Yeah, that's the only thing that could scare him.
Or a game,
They didn't even win.
Didn't even.
nope.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Oh,
game winning
that's
pick six is the scary thing for him. Funny enough.
Exactly.
Last thing I'll say for the top, we're not really talking about it, but TC, there's only one team that goes down to Division 3, and that's TCS Lubbock, and there's a reason we have them number two. Because they bring in that experience from Division 2. They bring a lot back and bring in a quarterback. Bo Connor is going to be a Division 1 guy at the end of his road. I think they have a lot of key pieces. I think that's a team to watch out for. And they'll get their grounds playing the Lubbock Christians, the Colleyvilles, and the Pantigos of the world to kind of get those that underneath them, to know what
And
this is all
I was
about.
gonna say for them really quickly, I feel
Yeah,
like this is gonna be a team that we don't hype up really at all because you look, they scrimmage Midland on August the 14th, and then it's by Seagraves Post, Albuquerque Legacy, Wellington Slayton. And it's not until October that they start playing TXPS teams. So I can see very
Mm.
easily they kind of like wander off the screen. We start being like DC Lubbock Christian, Brazos Christian, DC Lubbock Christian, Brazos Christian. Then all of a sudden DCS is like, hey, we're still here, and they start making waves, and we're like, oh, we should have been talking about y'all a lot longer. Riley White,
yeah.
if we don't mention your team at all, and then all of a sudden, like you're like, hey, Dodos, y'all need to actually cover this really good team here in Texas Division 3. I'm giving you full permission right now to do that. Don't let us forget about y'all out in West Texas.
Yep.
I forgot. I might have
You
traveled the longest
yes,
way
you went
for
to
a
the
game.
you went on plane. That's incredible. No, I'm hyping you up because you went on a plane to out to Lubbock to watch a game that day. Don't ever say that we don't like this stuff because that's incredibly just insane by you.
My cousin, shout out Jared Tolleson, and again, I'm not smart enough to know what kind of plane it is, but it's a little like I don't think prop plane's the right term. It's got like a propeller. It shakes like a tin can when it takes off. Like we literally took that thing like from like 3 o'clock out of College Station, flew to Lubbock, watched the game, got on the plane, flew back. Shout out Marcus Ramon Edwards. Great performance. And then I was back in College Station by 11 p.m. I got back to College Station at the normal time I would have gotten back covering a game in
Dude,
Houston. It was probably the most
dude.
unique experience
Yeah.
I've ever had, dude.
You have to for Marcus Ramon Edwards. He was a one of one for that school. One of
Dude,
one, man.
it
Incredible.
was incredible. But again, that's kind of the main thing. The last thing I'll say on Division 3, because I have to, because it's another school that's kind of turned into my guys' is Covenant. I know I talked about them a little bit. I love Ryan Hillner. I love Connor Evans. I love Caden Cosba. I think also the younger Lashley. Oh, what's it? Is it Thomas Lashley?
Yes.
Yeah, Thomas Lashley, who, by the way, is a freshman in Hilner's absence, stepped up and did well last year. I think it's a team that has talent. It's another team that's not flashy, doesn't have a huge social media presence, but we'll do our darndest to make sure they get their flowers because I think that is a very, very solid squad and Taps
Hey,
Division 3 and could make
three
waves.
three guys I'm excited to see in Division 3, and I'll leave it here. Dawson Ashley, from TCS Lubbock, 6'4", wide receiver DB, could do a lot. All state caliber player, could be like a MVP OPLY dark horse this year. My second guy is Hayes Young, the quarterback from Pantego, 6'3", can do really, really good. Has the pedigree, going to be a big time player this year with Landry Kemp. And lastly, I'm very excited about what San Francisco does this year with Johnny
Mm.
Goff, 6'3", 6'4", Division 1 caliber player. Put him at tight end receiver kind of caliber player. He's going to be a big time player for them with Jamar Thompson, who is a speed demon down there at quarterback for St. Francis. Excited to see what St. Francis does in the South as well.
It'll be interesting. And with that said, we move into Taps Division 4. You can't really talk about D4 without talking about the Death Star, and that's Dallas First Baptist. I mean, listen, the way that we got this thing ranked out so far, if you will go back to the rankings, basically the top five, we got First Baptist, Tyler All Saints Episcopal, which tickles me to death, by the way, to see them ranked second in D4. That is fantastic. Third is Mercy Culture Prep. Fourth is Roseville Christian. And fifth is Central Texas Christian. I will go down to sixth. We have another Tyler school there in Bishop Gorman. Shout out to Carlin Affetti, who is a monster, by the way, criminally underrated. That being said, looking at First Baptist, I mean, it's another instance of, yeah, they lose players, but they still bring back the best overall player in Division 4, maybe who has been for the last couple years in Georgiana Augustus. I mean, 6 foot, 230. Like I said, it struck me really, really heavily watching him play against Covenant last year. I was like, I haven't seen a player of this level of ferocity since I watched Palmer Nix play for DC when I was a terrified little sophomore watching tape on him. Dude, George Anagostis is a monster. And here's what's going to happen now with Dylan Jones graduating. You know, they're going to have to figure out who's going to play at quarterback. Well, guess what? George Anagostis is going to take some snaps there. And I can see a world where basically they try and get a favorable matchup in the box and they just like, George, quarterback power. Who's going to tackle you in D4? I mean,
No,
off the top of my head, no one. No one's going to tackle him. By the way, it's almost disrespectful just to say, hey, George, you take ball, you run fast, you hit people. George can throw the ball too. George came up through middle school as a quarterback.
yep.
George knows the routes, he knows concepts, and he can sling the dadgum pill. I don't know why I'm like getting this like worked up
But
about
It's your
it's the
dude.
king. It's long
Get
live
up
the king.
there. Come
It's the
on.
king. Like
King George.
It's crazy, dude. He is an elite player. And the fact that you mentioned their preseason offensive MVP, Lincoln Schleif. Yeah, Lincoln Schleif's another guy that is just, my dude. He Schleif the knife, who I say is my dude. I mispronounced his name for the first 3 years of his existence in TXPS. I'll never call you Schleif again. But I mean, he is incredible. He's first team all TXPS wide receiver, and he's
yep.
that for a reason. I mean, you have all these guys learning under D-Rob, who's one of the best trainers in the game. Between him, Antonio Cobb is going to be an absolute dude for them. And you also have Colin Dukia, who I just think is wide receiver one on so many other teams and taps. He's another guy that's just an absolute monster. You got Zykeas Robertson. You have Tucker Brown, who's going to come in and play wide receiver, but he's an
Dog.
even better safety. Dog, dude. He's a guy like George in that he's not a huge social media presence, not going to be like, hey, look at me. I got the stats, I got the offers. But he's just consistent. He's started since his freshman year. They're going to rotate him on both sides of the ball. I say all of that to say, even with losing the Corey Thomases, the Micah Fosters, the Harden Browns, the Dylan Jones, this still by far is the best team in Division Four, and also
Yep.
bringing in Jaden Morales last year from DeSoto, that's not going to hurt the equation. Again, we see over and over First Baptist graduate talent, then bring back talent, and graduate talent, and bring back talent. They will always reload. They will always basically have the coaching staff not only to reload talent, but to develop whoever's there, being some of the best coaches in the game. I mean, it's First Baptist. Walker, I
Yeah.
think it's almost the same conversation as we've had in the past, not in the past, in the very recent past, talking about um, Fort Worth All Saints. Is it All Saints of the field? Well, I feel like actually, to contradict myself, it's an even more
Dude,
obvious
It's
I
question
was
than
more.
D4.
It's
legitimately about to cut you off and be like, "This is the answer.
yeah.
This is
Yeah,
truly the answer, dude." In terms of
no,
like, First Baptist is gonna run the script with no Brazos here now.
The
I
the
think it is.
the dangerous side of First Baptist is like we talked about it like, oh, can they compete with the higher up teams? And you saw with Bishop Lynch last year. Like in the trenches is where they're not as great, but they still have pieces. Don't get me wrong, like whatever. It's the athletes they have on the outside is just they match up with anyone in the state. That receiving core matches up with anyone in the state. The interesting thing for me is I'm gonna guess William Everly's gonna be the kind of the quarterback to let George do whatever. But as you get into playoffs and where games matter more, it's going to be, hey, George, yo, go do this, go do that.
Georgia's going to run a Dylan Bell scenario in the
Yeah,
state championship against ESD back in 21, where
exactly.
it's like you're going to throw a pass, you're going to run a touchdown, and you're going to also catch a touchdown in this game.
The,
That's just kinda how it's going to go.
it's going to be put the ball in the guy with the best player on the field and let him
Yeah,
go to work, and that's going to be
yeah.
literally long live the king. That's what his reign is going to be incredible this year. Shouting out these Tyler teams. Bishop Gorman is going to be really impressive this year. I think they're going to rise to the occasion coming down from D3. Same with Tyler All Saints. Both of them are going to come down to D3. I'm just really excited about this Tyler All Saints team. They're going to have to get through some other teams, but like Siler Bus, Tate Shelley, and Reagan Ford are going to be really good pieces for them with the younger Clay Miser coming through the ranks as well. One of the only rising freshmen in Aiden Lavasseur coming through. They got some pieces to make some noise in there. Bishop Gorman, we could talk forever about Carlin Effetti, but I also like Elon Salary, the 27 quarterback. Matthew Hall, the 29 behind him, is kind of getting some recognition. They got some Roberto Lozano, like they got some pieces to make some noise. And shouting out my Fort Worth team, Mercy Culture Prep. Braden Raybuck is DPOY one. Like he is incredible, a great player for them. Gage Chili comes in after a year from coming in from Haltom Prep, or sorry, Haltom City last year as QB1. Looks really good. When we maybe a top quarterback in TXPS this year, not may will be a top quarterback. And Walker Hughes is one of the better rising upperclassmen guys in the state. I'm very excited about him. I'm going to say this about the rest. Live Oak was kind of a team that we don't really know about. I think they're going to look good this year. Griffin Pollineg, Joshua Balch, Sawyer Hillman, they have some pieces that are going to be really intriguing. My intriguing team, and you're going to look at me and you go, Walker, why are you saying this? I think Bishop Riker is going to be better than what people think this year. I just think right now, Sacred Heart and TCA Academy coming down from Division 4 to or D3 to D4, I don't know much about this team. And I'm intrigued to see what they do. I like Benjamin Sicking for Sacred Heart, but I think the rise of the Riker team is going to happen this year. I'm not going to say they're going to go for a state championship or be a top three team in the division or anything. I just think they're going to bounce. That's my shocking team of that district. I think a little bit. So
That's
we
fair.
have them as our last place team because truly from protection from past seasons, it's what they really that's what it's going to look like. Watch for them to maybe be a little bit higher than other teams expect.
I think so. And Walker, I don't know if you hit on, did you hit on Rose Hill?
No,
In that, so
go to the south. Go to the south.
going to the South. I mean, I think Rose Hill, and I will say last year, I'll bring this up again because I said it towards the end of the season last year when Rosso played Brazos. Last year, I said, hey, Rosso returns a ton of production and they'll all be back again the next year. I think they have a chance to be much better this year. And I remember clear as day in the script, somebody, and I think it was Walker wrote Rose Hill, question mark, question mark, question mark in the script. And it turns out they actually were pretty good. And I think a lot of those guys are back again this year. You bring Hudson Hurst back in at quarterback. You've got Bo Smith at defensive end and tight end. You've got Caleb Davila basically as their MVP this year. You've got Devin Gay at linebacker. I mean, I think this is a team. yet again, they're an incredibly cohesive unit, but also it's a lot of guys that have been playing together for a long time. And I know that's cliche to be like, oh, it's the power of friendship. They know each other, they like each other, they're going to play hard. I think that is incredibly underrated aspect of a team, especially in Division Four. Just understanding where every guy in the field is going to be, and you don't have to second guess because you've been practicing with these guys for years and years and years. I think Rose Hill has the opportunity to be really, really good. I mean, just looking at their schedule, I mean, if they can get past playing at Central Texas on September 25th, I mean, they might go undefeated in district. Northland Christian is always going to be interesting. Shiner St. Paul's an interesting storyline with Walk Smith coming back. Can he basically implement some of the old magic back in? I hate to even call it magic because that wasn't magic. They were just an absolute dynasty year in, year out. That being said, the South is going to be interesting, but also looking at Central Texas, I mean, bringing back Colter Ragsdale is just so huge. That is an absolute dude. I mean, he can get it done basically whether it's outside linebacker or anywhere else. He's going to play literally all over the field. He's got experience at running back, fullback, wide receiver, tight end. It's the most D4 story on the planet, but he's especially in Division 4. That's the type of guy that can win games by himself. And I'm not disrespecting other guys on the team because you have guys like Nicholas Eastray at edge, and then you've got Princeton Schneider playing all over the field. They're going to be great, especially with Leaf Johnston, the seasoned vet at the helm. I think they have a great opportunity. And remember, this is always a team that ends up giving First Baptist fits. They almost beat First Baptist, and there were a couple controversial calls that maybe said they should have been playing in a state game last year. Again, all that to say is we started the season, we're like First Baptist, First Baptist, First Baptist. I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'm saying teams like Central Texas and teams like Rose Hill are still here, and they're going to have a great opportunity to come up out of the South. And I think it's going to make for great storylines. And I think that was the thing we were saying is that Brazos Christian leaves, and now there's no dam to stop the oncoming flood of First Baptist. I think Central Texas and Rose Hill are still up to that task, and they have the athletes to do so. And this is part of the reason I like doing this so much, because we get to start to build our storylines, and we get to see kind of the puzzle pieces of TXPS come together as we see what the season's going to build out to be. And ultimately, 75% of these predictions are going to be dead wrong, but we won't talk about those. And we'll talk about the 25% we got right and call ourselves the smartest people on the planet. Ryan Schroeder, as we round out TAPS Division 4, we talked a lot, then we'll go through SPC and then get out of here. But for TAPS D4, any final closing comments on the State of the Union?
No, I think what I hit on the top is probably the biggest point is that you can make a lot of predictions about who's going to be there with them in the state championship in terms of First Baptist, who's going to be, going toe to toe with them. I'm just going to give another spoiler. If you haven't already got the magazine, you really need to. But spoiler alert, me, Walker, and Wes all have three different matchups for the state championship game with First Baptist. But all of us have First Baptist as the winner. It's really not close. This team is going to be just as good, if not even better. We literally could be talking about this team being one of the best, First Baptist teams, just in terms of the fact that if Anagostas has an incredible season and takes over, we could be talking about, hey, this is 21 Kincaid type where, although they have Dylan Bell, they still just looked incredible on every facet of the game. I did want to talk about one last thing about First Baptist before we got done with D4, and that was just to say, as I said, I'm interested a little bit in their non-district slate. I really love that they're keeping that Grace game every single year. That's been really cool. And the Grace Prep game will be interesting as well. I think I've challenged LeVore in this a couple years in a row now, but I would love to see another Holy Cross type game. I want to see another game that's putting them up against the top tier. They had a Bishop. They have a Bishop Lynch game at one point, or am I?
They did it last year. Yeah,
they put up like 40 points.
Yeah, it's just more games like that'll just continue to be a benchmark in my opinion. Just because we're about to see their district slate again this year, and it probably won't be close.
Lavorne, if you need me to make some context around the state to start playing games, let me know. I'll get you in touch. We'll make things happen.
I think they need a week 0 unless I can find one. Unless they've fixed that. But
funny enough, I ran into him the other day. I actually think he said he was looking for a game that week, or it just wasn't going to happen. But that being said, I also will, on their defense, they're in a spot where nobody wants to schedule them because any bigger school, it's a lose-lose situation.
Yes.
If you beat First Baptist, you're supposed to beat the tiny D4 school. If you lose, which is very possible because of how good they are, it's embarrassing you lost to a D4 school, even though that D4 school could beat many teams teams in TAPS Division One. It's always a tough spot for those kind of private schools to get into. That being said, that is TAPS Division Four. We are now 4-6 with if my math is correct. That is 66% of the way through the preview, and we will move through the SPC starting with SP. Actually, you know what? We're just gonna do the whole thing together. Well, obviously it'll be broken out naturally into 4A and 3A, but we have SPC smushed into one, even though it's not one. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, and we've been doing this for 2 hours, so my sentences are becoming less coherent as we go through. Again, this is always the longest episode we do all year, and at least there's not four of them, so you don't have to hear us yap that long.
Yeah.
Words are hard. That being said, for the SPC, I mean, you really can't talk about it without talking about the top two teams at the top of 4A, which is Kincaid and Bel Air. Not Bel Air, Kincaid and EHS. How many years straight have Kincaid and EHS played in a title game, Walker?
Yeah.
When was the last time a
Well,
non-Kincaid EHS
E-
matchup
that's a
E-
took?
Schroeder answer.
ESD was in the state championship in 21.
There you go. Then that's your
Uh,
answer.
I is that the actual answer?
Yep.
I know the stat I used to have forever was they've both won the state championship dating back to like 2013 or something, 2012. Like there hasn't been a different state championship besides Kincaid or EHS since 2012.
So
The last change of the guard of those was the one that Schroeder went to. So since then, it's always been those two.
That's crazy.
So that'll be the ask is that, especially even last year, we were like, oh, Cooper, Jacoby Dixon, Colson Collins, they got Jake Sneed. Like they have dudes, and obviously they have it again. But that's the question is that just on the surface, do you think there's more than a 10% chance that we see anything outside of a Kincaid EHS matchup? Ryan, I'll toss it to you first.
Well, gosh, I can't keep ruining all these matchup previews that we picked at the beginning, but I might as well. I picked Cooper. I will be
Huge.
100% honest. I tried to be a little bit different in terms of just having a different champion, but it's not to say that Cooper didn't have talent. Cooper's going to be a great team again this year. Things have changed just a little bit for them as well. Last year, probably on the beginning of the slate, probably looked a little more promising for them, but we'll see. Week two, but the third game of the year, they play All Saints. Depending on how that game goes, I'd be torn to figure out. Yeah, if John Cooper plays well against All Saints, then I would love to see how they're going to fare in their district slate. They play Houston St. Thomas off the rip in week 0. They're setting themselves up well. They really want to test themselves. I believe in Colson Collins. I believe in Joe Norman. Not to mention Triplet, and then also the other dude I'm forgetting about at the moment. Let me scroll down their team. And Jake Sneed at the tight end position. I mean, legitimately, they're going to be a really solid team. But yeah. Oh, did you see me do the wham?
No, I didn't
Did
see
you
you do
see
the
me
wham.
a second ago? Yeah, you missed it. You missed it. I did the
I thought
wham
I was
for
being
Jake Sneed.
innovative there.
Big win.
No. I already had Jake Sneed whamming a circle.
Big one.
All that to say
Which,
is
by the
that,
way, speaking of that quickly, I cannot believe that got millions of views on TikTok and it wasn't our video. Someone stole it and used
see,
it. But like that is crazy that we didn't get it. That's sad.
Did we try? I thought,
see.
didn't we try and copyright strike that?
Dude, see,
Probably.
it's just a social world, dude. I'm
Yeah.
glad Jake Sneed got his shine though. That's all that
That being
matters.
said, if any of you rip our content and don't credit us, we will copyright strike you in a half second. We will fight over intellectual property. By the way, with all these new interns now, guess what? 4 of them are lawyers. They're coming after you. We're building this into an empire. They've somehow passed the bar as 16.
That's all we actually hired instead. And we actually didn't get any content people this year, all lawyers.
No, we actually only brought on content people so no context could finish up his studies for the bar and then become our in-house legal counsel as well as HR this year.
See, that's what happens after 2 hours. We start talking about random characters you've never heard of on this show. So
exactly. All right, we'll keep going here. But that being said, I think the most interesting thing, especially in 4A for me, is don't get me wrong. I think that Cooper is going to be great. Colson Collins and Joe Norman. By the way, Joe Norman is a monster. He's only going to be a sophomore. What was that 27, 28, 29? Yeah, a sophomore. You notice it's the beginning of the season because I got to count on my fingers what the classes are. But yeah, Joe Norman's a monster. You had Lucas Triplet at defensive line, like Ryan mentioned. It's just interesting just because I have to pick Kincaid as the state champions because it's the same thing as always. Obviously, EHS is more talented. You make the argument Cooper on paper is more talented. I mean, besides the fact that Wayne Shanks is an all universe type stud, top to bottom, Cooper probably has bigger dudes and more talent. It's just that it's the same old song and dance, to quote Aerosmith. It's just that they're going to make it happen regardless. They've got Nathan Larned. The line is going to be full of a bunch of guys that actually also look like me at about 6 foot, maybe 100 and 85 pounds. But they're going to be so scared of Larned killing them for missing a scheme that they're going to block perfectly the entire game. And also, that's all Wayne Shanks needs, a sliver of daylight. You add in Ross Wynn at quarterback. I think he's going to be fantastic. And also a guy I think is physically impressive. Is their preseason defensive MVP, the senior linebacker safety Thomas Smith. I mean, I think they've got dudes. And I think it also, it's a bit of a disservice just to be like Kincaid's just a bunch of average looking dudes that can go make plays. They have some guys that are
They
great
do.
athletes to
Yeah.
pair with the fact that they are incredibly disciplined. But you look at the other side of the coin, EHS, it's the same story. Is that I mean the sheer athleticism on this team is insane. What I will say is Ryan and I saw this at the state game. It was hilarious. At the TAP 7-on-7 state championship, the state platinum bracket championship was played between two SBC teams in Kincaid and EHS, which also
Yeah.
tells you how good Kincaid's scheme is by the fact that they're a primarily run heavy team. They're like, oh, we'll just go out and compete for a TAPS 7-on-7 state title just to show y'all TAPS isn't anything. I didn't say that. I made up Kincaid saying that, by the way. Don't clip that out of
Whoa.
context. But for EHS, I mean, dude, it is just a wealth of riches. Now, looking at this again, I might be like, there's a legitimate argument to say that they might be the title favorites coming into the season. Donovan Warren is no stranger to recognition on this podcast.
Yeah.
He will be, I mean, the MVP candidate for quarterback in the SPC moving into the season. You pair that with Deacon Morgan, who I feel like we've been talking about the Morgan family literally since I was like a junior at Texas A&M. I think we saw Mad Morgan's highlights pop off as like an eighth grader in 2021. We've been talking about the Morgans ever since. Deacon is just as good. He's just an absolute physical specimen. I would hate to be an offensive tackle trying to go up against him. You bring in Brooks out, not bring in. You have Brooks Allen at running back, who's going to be fantastic. And then to cap it all off, I think who might be the MVP of this team is Tyler Williams at receiver. I mean, I was talking to Ryan, and I felt like the entire game plan at 7-on-7, which, by the way, I've come to realize that 7-on-7 is not real football. You can't extrapolate real stuff from there. We learned that with the Austin St. Michael's versus Austin Regents thing. But I feel like it was just like, hey, throw it up to Tyler Williams, and he's going to come
Yeah.
down and make a
Every
touch
play.
and score a touchdown. I feel, but I feel like he's going to be elite moving into the season. And I've even mentioned T2 coming in from Fort Bend.
Hmm.
I mean, Walker, I've almost talked myself out of Kincaid being the title favorites. I'm going to ask for you to be the voice of reason, not to call back to an old episode, but just to
Yeah.
say, hey, listen, we know how this story goes. Kincaid's not going to have the athletes, but still going to win state. Episcopal just on paper looks better.
And you didn't even mention Reed Fowler, who's maybe the best
Oh,
dual threat guy in that division. I mean, he is incredible Division 1 guy, no doubt. I think he already offered by UNLV, I believe, or something along those lines this past offseason. Like he's going to be a great, great player. I get your point. On paper, it makes sense to do Episcopal over them and do all of this stuff because on paper they have a lot. The question for Episcopal is just going to be defense, right? They lose two linebackers. There's two starting linebackers, both who were high level athletes, and also Travis Johnson in the trenches and some other guys. Um, the DBs are going to be great for them. It's the front seven for them is going to be the question mark for them, and a team and a division and district that you have to play Kincaid, you have to have an elite front seven, right?
Yeah.
But
Have to.
Episcopal, yeah, for Episcopal, it on paper, I totally get that. But the thing about it is, it's really not true because I think Kincaid is talented with the rest of them. We can mention Wayne Shanks galore. He's awesome, blah 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 blah, MVP, blah 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 blah, better than anyone on the field, blah 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 blah. But he's that good. But the thing about it is, Ross Wynn, we talk about Colson Collins and we talk about Donovan Warren. In both games, he looked better, just being upfront. Like
Mm.
we talk a lot about it, and I think in
hmm.
terms of whatever collegiate recruiting, you can talk about the other two guys. But when it comes down to a thing on a high school football field, Ross Wynn delivers every time he's on it, and I think that's the thing that sets him apart. Thomas Smith is a great player. Drake Olson is going to take that next step. AJ Allard is going to be a great dual threat corner receiver for them this year. The Chambers brothers, Cade and Nate, are awesome. Holden Jones was a great player for them last year. Miles Camarada. You talk about their offensive line being like, oh yeah, they're whatever. They're really not, man. They're 6'1" at least around the board. Eli Ferber leading the way at 6'5". Like they have some pieces in this trenches that are going to be really, really good. Lewis Brazelton on both sides of the ball, Jack Archer. It just I came away because I always thought when I would go by spring ball, be like, oh yeah, it's Kincaid. They're like you said, they're gonna be this, they're gonna be that, but they're gonna be coached really well and they're gonna win games. It really isn't like that. They look impressive too. That's the scary part about this team this year, and that's why I didn't like Kincaid all the way. If you're gonna play, like if you're gonna be a betting favorite, I also just think they're one of the more talented teams and they can stick with their talent with the rest of them. Yeah.
Here's the point to wrap this kind of all up in this. Best part about this year is we're getting a 14 bracket for this. When
Yeah.
it comes down to the
Don't let Nathan Arnett hear you say that.
yeah, no, that's this year, right? This year it was
This year,
the
yeah.
first year of the 4 year. So we'll see some combination of a whether it's EHS in the one seed in the regular season or whether it's Kincaid in the one seed in the regular season. We'll see some form of Cooper or somebody, or maybe Cooper's the. Well, you really know how it could shake out.
Couple things I want to quickly mention before you want to move on to
Yeah,
3A.
I do
Yeah,
want to
what
say
was
something
to
really
say?
quickly.
Go for
I'm
it.
going to sound like the biggest hypocrite on the planet because everyone got, whenever the announcement by our very own Jack Klosek of the playoff, there's the whole meme of going, oh, I'm so happy, man, from heaven. I have done a 180 on this. I think for 3A, it's fine. I think for 4A, I don't like it. I have actually now come full circle on that. You can call me, a spineless
Yeah.
weasel for kind of telling Larned. I think it's great to be like, it's dumb, you're stupid. Use your brain. And me being like, yes, sir. I think it's
No,
stupid. I have thought about it a little bit more. In that, you think about it. There's 6 teams in SPC 4, unless my math's incorrect. So now, 2/3 of those teams are going to make the playoffs.
yeah,
The only reason I dislike it now, thinking about it, is because of what I like so much about the SBC in years past, is that manufactured intensity that every single
yeah.
week had. It felt like a playoff game. It added a little bit to the beginning of the season where the TAPS teams just kind of feeling each other out. But then all of a sudden, Kincaid and or EHS and Cooper are playing in week 3, and if Cooper doesn't win, they're out. And you're like, oh, this is a playoff type atmosphere this
hmm
early in the season. That's the only and again, I'm not going to go off on this for a long time. We're already well into this episode. I think for 3A, it makes more sense with more teams. I think for 4A, it makes less sense. I've had time to think about it.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking of old nostalgia, being like, I wish Cole Allen got a title shot. And then, Larned was like, St. John's made a big fit about this, and I don't think this should happen.
He's
But
like Cole Allen had his title shot actually,
And
it's
they
like,
did.
well,
And they
well,
did. I
and
was
the
at the
thing is, you can't fault him because he was right. I mean, the
yeah,
the entire point of it is, you basically need to win the game, win the games in front of you, to be eligible for the playoffs, and that is, I think,
yeah.
the crux of the issue. Before we get into 3A, I want to talk about some of the teams that we didn't mention between, St. John's, ESD, St. Mark's, etc. Because I think there's some talent there, Walker. I mean, I like
Yeah.
guys, like Blaze Schumacher, like David Dixon, especially as a dude that we're gonna have to make sure that we talk about this year. Because I think St. Mark's, I think they're gonna be on the outside looking in. I mean, I think I say that, but now with the expanded playoff, they're gonna have a
Yeah,
great
they're gonna have that
opportunity.
4. Yeah, the
Exactly.
4.
Especially they might be, because we have them slotted at 5th in the district, behind.
sixth, right?
St. John's? No,
No, we have them at
Mark's is
5th.
6. Mark's is 6. Is
Oh,
it
never
St. John's
mind.
is 4?
Yeah. So we have them behind a couple teams, but I think they're gonna have to do some work in the trenches. But I think Blaze Schumacher and David Dixon is a man, dude. He racked up 1,235 total yards and
Yeah.
16 touchdowns in a much shorter SBC season than the TAPS equivalents. I mean, Walker, what are your thoughts on some of the more sleeper teams in the big division of SBC?
Yeah, St. Mark's, St. John's, and Houston Christian are all going to be fighting for that 4th spot in that playoff seed, and I think all 3 of them have a shot to do it. Like you said, St. Mark's, David Dixon, Blaze Schumacher, Max Say are all great players. It's going to be who can step up around them to make the impact. But David Dixon would be running back 1 on pretty much every SBC team besides Wayne Shanks, right? Like it's that type of player. St. John's, very interesting stuff. They graduated a lot of different things, but Hanley Sayers and Carson Murray return. The quarterback is going to be an interesting spot. James Young is the guy who's going to be the dude. and Tony Thomas. Honestly, I want to talk about both Thomas brothers. Tony Thomas on the defensive side is going to be their MVP, but I am ecstatic about 29 athlete Jacob Thomas. He's going to be a Division 1 prospect, 6'4", big player. Could play quarterback for them, but probably will play receiver, literally whatever they need. He's going to be a big time player for them. Excited for his season this year. Albert Zoe as well. Gordon Young. Of course, the big man up front, Will Hellinger, coming back for another SBC offensive line MVP campaign. But the team I'm really excited about, and if they put everything together, it's going to be interesting for them is Houston Christian. Jackson Barrow, Paul Hill, Boston Whitehead comes over from Tompkins, who's going to be a really good player. And they make a impressive wide receiver core with him. Christian Elias, Max Clean at tight end, Jaden Nelson, Boston Elias, the rising freshman of Cecil Shorts the fourth. They make an impressive core. Jackson Angel leads the way, who's going to be a top five, probably what he ends up 28 quarterback in the class. He's going to be really good. Paul Hill, Will Compton, Shane Wilson in the DB class. Whew! Ken Jones, Cecil Shorts, Tapasi Inyang, Jaden Nelson, and AJ Shell. Like those dudes that make it an impressive unit. They are the chaos team in this district, no doubt. I'm not saying like they were good. I might have them honestly over St. John's. They're just unproven right now, and that's why we have them there. But like they can make the playoffs, and I'm not saying they can beat one of the top three, but man, it's gonna make them more difficult for them. The question for them is in the trenches. They don't have it like the top three teams really. And Elijah Bridges, Horton, Will Lane are going to be the guys that have to step up this year. But like if they can compete in the trenches, Houston Christian is going to make a lot of noise this year.
I think that they will. Ryan Schroeder, any overarching thoughts on SPC 4A before we go down to 3A?
No, nothing else really. I do like the Houston Christian talk though. They're pretty young, grand scheme of things, but yeah, watching Max Kling at 7-on-7 was also another dude that I thought was absolutely insane. They're just really young, and I really have no more comments beside that. We hit the main crux of everything, and I'm excited to see how the bracket shakes out. The only thing I was gonna hit, actually, one more thing was one of the comments that they made on the Coaches Pod episode. If you didn't watch it, one of the main arguments for the not having the four bracket, besides what Wes just said, uh, it's just the fact that you could play the same team twice. You could basically have the same matchup twice in a row, basically, is how it could work out. If you played someone at the end of the year in your district, you're going to basically see them in the first round. Just because it's not like the other divisions and stuff where you play a team from the South first round or whatever it may be. So I'm starting to come around to it too. I'm not someone that likes gifting people playoff spots. I kind of love that about D2 this year a little bit. We're really getting to the crux of, kind of cutting it off and really putting just the top teams forward for the playoffs.
And with that said, after what has been a 2.5 hour runtime so far, which honestly I think it beats last year because last year we did 2.5, almost 3 hours on Division 1 alone. So maybe we're actually making better time across all the
Yes, we are.
divisions. For SPC 3A, the final piece that we're going to cover.
Oof.
Looking at this, I mean, I think it's Oak Ridge's division to lose, or yeah, Oak Ridge's division to lose. Just the amount of talent that not only they return, but also bring in. You hate to see a guy like Cole Worthington leave, who's the SPC 3A MVP, an absolute monster, but bringing back Will Lamons on both sides of the ball, defensive back and running back and receiver, excuse me. And also bringing in guys like Hunter Squires and then back Joshua Dees, who's an absolute man last year. And also guys like Dalen Tomlinson, Isaac Bly, Hudson Hayes, Kingston James, then Easton Jefferson, who I remember had the big man pick six last year in the state title game. I mean, especially with a guy like Jeremy Flowers, who is out to stamp his name in the record books and do that by any means necessary. I think it is absolutely theirs to lose, especially with some of the shakeup that we've seen throughout the rest of the division. We had Country Day at second in the rankings. I think there is a pretty big gap right now between Oak Ridge and the field. I mean, losing a guy like Major Factor hurts a lot, and I feel like All Saints was just like, you have some really good players, Country Day. We're gonna take all the good ones. Not all the good ones, because Hayes Casey, Owen Bloomdale, and Thomas Blunts are still fantastic and they return. I think that core is enough to get them second in that district. I just think we've talked a lot about, the top teams in each division and the gap between them. I think that exists also in SBC 3A. The team that intrigues me a lot and I think could make a very, very strong case for second best in the division is Trinity Valley. I think Beckham St. Peter and Caden Tolbert are two of the best players in the SPC, even regardless of division. I mean, Beckham St. Peter is a guy, he's kind of like a Lincoln Schleif to me, that I'm like, you see him, he's an incredibly shifty, fast, but also strong slot receiver. It's a dude that just you like to put the camera on and watch make plays. And Caden Tolbert is also in that vein where you just get him the ball, and whether he's making plays with his legs or throwing the ball, he's a gamer. He's going to make it happen. I will have to be on site for the Battle of Bryant Irvin yet again, because I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup between those two teams. But Walker, as we look at the top of 3A, that being Oak Ridge, Trinity Valley, and Country Day, I think there is a pretty significant gap between Oak Ridge and the field, but I'm more interested in seeing who jockeys for second place between TVS and Country Day. Your thoughts on the smaller division in the SBC?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Oak Ridge can do. This is, love my guy over there in Flowers, and he's, was former SES coach. We go way back now, which is crazy, but he's a great coach, and what he's starting there is special, and I think he wants to build something into a true elite program there at Oak Ridge, and bringing in Squires, who's played minutes at 6A Arlington Martin, and coming in to be the quarterback here in 3A is just incredible. The Blyes, the Eli Franks, Kingston James, Delvin Robinson, who is going to stamp his name on this division this year, is going to be sensational. Just get ready for it. Hudson Hayes, who's a great running back in the 28 class, maybe the top five guy. Easton Jefferson, Joshua Dees, who's an elite athlete for them. Caden Thomas, the younger brother, who, I always joke around with him that, his older brother was Tank. And we're like, what are you going to be? He's just going to be called Caden Thomas because he's going to make his name known this year.
Mm.
And I'm excited to see what he can do there. And yeah, Will Lemons, Bly, Jacob Bly, Isaac Bly. This team is loaded, man. I'm really, really excited about what they can do. But the thing about it is, like, each team has a guy or two that are going to be like, okay, what can they do this year? Starting with Cistercian. There's not much we know about this team, but they're led by Trevor Stanley, who kind of impressed a lot of people at the TXPS retreat. 6'5", can sling the pill. Excited to see what he can do this year. ESD is my dark horse for this team, and I think they'll make the title game. This is my dark horse. Nicholas Marquez, Miles Link, Curtis Mathis. Mathis and League, that combination is lethal. Miles Link is one of the more underrated guys from last year, was a all SPC quarterback, one of five. And he is, I'm not saying he's Johnny Manziel, but he is kind of the guy where, like, he can just make things happen. You need him to run and make 5 yards. We get a first down, he can do it. You need him to escape the pocket, run around, find an open receiver, he can do that. He's a great, great athlete. I mean, I think he has a bright future as a senior. Curtis Mathis, the high Holy Cross commit, he's a D1 commit for a reason. Great player. John Edge Sarwa, the I think Penn commit on the defensive line. They got some pieces, man, to really shake up some things. Owen Blumendahl. I'm not with Hayes Casey coming back, getting an offseason under his belt. Owen Blumendahl might have the top 5 receiver year for TXPS this year. He got his season cut short due to injury last season, but he is 10-2 in the 100-meter at 6'3" or 6'1". Sorry, you're talking about a tall receiver who can run that fast with great routes. Beast this year, man. I think he's going to be really, really good. Um, Moving on. San Andrews, rising team. It can be exciting to see what they can do. Hayes Paddock comes back as an all SPC running back. Another big season ahead of him with 1,200 yards last year. Marcus Erlison is a top, 5-ish receiver in SPC coming into this year, with also quarterback Charlie Greenberg returning. Last thing I'll mention, because you already talked about TVS and you get about him. Matthew Anderson for TMI Episcopal, 6'2" receiver, had what was it? Almost 1,200 yards receiving and 25 touchdowns last year.
Woo!
He set TMI at school records last year. A
Oh
guy
yeah.
that we really didn't talk about a lot last year because just TMI was in this weird, like, vague state. With Hagan Young leaving to go to public school, Grant Joyner comes into that role. TMI Episcopal under, Lucas Peters, who has been a dude as the OC for Kincaid, knows the SPC, knows how to do this. I'm excited to
Mm.
see what he can do with Matthew Anderson as the MVP. I think he's an OPOY candidate for this year, truly. I think he's a great, great player. Um, I'm very intrigued by TMI Episcopal, but yeah, I look for TVS, Country Day to kind of and ESD to be the teams that kind of compete for that second spot in that district and that state championship round. IVSD kind of making it there, but man, it's going to be a fun challenge to see who rises to the occasion, especially with the 14 playoff.
I think it will for sure. Ryan Schroeder, as we put a bow on this thing and wrap up SBC 3A, your thoughts on what should be a very, very fun division in the Southwest Preparatory Conference?
Yeah, I think I'll hit it pretty well. There's going to be a couple divisions that are pretty similar in the aspect that it's one team at the top and there's a lot of teams below them that probably are going to be fighting their way up there. Lots of talent throughout the entire division. That's not a question. Running through the entire SBC in total, there's so many dogs. I'm actually more excited about the SBC in certain aspects than I am even some of TAPS. It's really going to be the pinnacle of a lot of the high level players in SBC and in 3A especially. I love watching Oak Ridge. I gotta go. I gotta get out to an Oak Ridge game this year. I want to be there so bad. That's a team last year that I missed. I wanted to see Cole Worthington so bad last year. So definitely gonna have to go out there this year to see them. And yeah, I think that will be the crux of my SBC 3A coverage. So
To add on to
whether
that,
that's
yeah,
you said
sorry.
what?
So to add on to that, Oak Ridge last year played a weird non-district slate where we played teams that I have no idea who they are. This year they played Dallas Christian. Game to watch. I'm very excited
Mm,
about that game going into
mm.
non-district. So, yeah.
Love to see
Yeah,
that.
that'll be fantastic. I feel like I've promised so many schools across the state already. I'm going to be at that non-district game. I'll be at this non-district game. No, I'll be there for sure. And I realized I've committed to like 8 different non-district
Yep.
games. And there's only like
Yep.
4 or 5 to play. So I'm gonna have to send out some apology letters or send some of our great student analysts that are an extension of
Y-
TXPS Media to those games.
This is what I'm about to say. I know Grapevine Faith is playing in Ireland. I think we got to find a way to get to Ireland. That's really what it comes down to.
Faith is playing in Ireland.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many fun games. I almost thought about we just do like a map of where everyone's playing these non-district games. We might have to
Screw up,
post
map. I
that.
want a plane ticket to Ireland.
Dude, yeah, I legitimately thought I'm not even joking. If someone watches the episode fully, maybe you can get a sneak peek. I may come on the episode and have a full Irish jig ready to go for Grapevine Faith versus Ireland team.
That sounds like a potential punishment for the Halloween episode. That they
Oh,
have to that someone has to dress up as a leprechaun. Although leprechauns might be problematic now. I don't know. That shows you now that we are late enough in the episode that we were going to shut it down before this turns into a Twitter space. But that being said, I mean that is our basically comprehensive preview
oof.
of the Texas private school landscape as we head into the season. Again, I apologize if we didn't name you specifically or your team by name, but that is what our magazine TXPS Media's Unrivaled is for. Again, every single school that we got information for, which has 99% of them in the state, is in this magazine. Again, go pick up a copy or go order one online. It's a $5 subscription. You have access to the entire magazine. Again, this has basically, it's the Bible for private school sports. Go in there, read it, find your name, screenshot it, post it. We are so happy to be able to give this to you. And we are happy to be back for our 6th season covering Texas private school sports. We will be in your feed very, very shortly for the week 1 preview. But until then, I have been 1/3 of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. Ryan Schroeder and Walker Lott have fantastically been themselves. We will see you shortly for the week 1 preview. See you then.